Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now here's the guy who knows why Rex Ryan wants to go to the sanctuary. I'm Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rob Has a Podcast. And it is a rite of passage here today, as we are very excited to have my esteemed colleague here with us to talk about everything that's going to happen in the Survivor 44 finale. Of course, you can read his writing on parade.com. You could hear him across many podcasts, including the Survivor B&B and every post-show recap. Give it up for Mike Bloom.
Rob, I watched this episode like 3 times. I didn't see any yodeling at the sanctuary. That's why Rex Ryan was so interested, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And
well,
also
maybe they were taking down
Dragon.
yodels, and that's what Carolyn was trying to sniff on Jam Jam's breath.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. All right. So here we are, Mike. Can you believe it? We started this. What was it? Back in was it January, the beginning of February? We started listening to interviews with these folks, and we got to meet them. And now here we are, down to 5. And one of them on Wednesday night will be crowned the winner of Survivor 44.
Yeah, it is wild. I believe January 31st was the day that the cast released.
January?
That could be it. They want to squeeze it in right before then as the first indicator of who would win this season.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of February, we listened to the course of the interviews that we gave preseason, found out how cracked this cast was. In the opening minutes, Bruce cracked his head to prove that. And here we are. I mean,
let's just go back and listen to their preseason interviews and see if there was anything there.
I mean, there was a lot there considering Carolyn's interview, right? We were able to jumpstart the soundboard fairly early on, considering the noises that she was making. And I do think, by and large, the people were able to play to what they were putting out there preseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, going back to I think that was the first podcast we did, the Tika preview. And we were like, okay, wow, this is like a really interesting group. And it's like, we've got some very wild personalities and then maybe some more boring personalities. And some of them are gone. Some of them will be back. But the really wild personalities are all still here.
Yeah, it's wild to think about that. We were looking at that group. And like you said, with no offense to, Sarah, Helen, or Bruce, I think we looked at Jam Jam, Carolyn, Carson, 3 of the biggest personalities in this cast, let alone this tribe. And how blessed are we? Thank you, Lord, Jeff, for springing onto us not only the fact that they have lasted so long in the game, but they have become, in my opinion, the best players of the season.
Yeah.
Have essentially become the story of them and are intrinsic to how everything goes down over the next 3 hours, about 48 hours from now.
It's just so wild to think that these Tika players, and it's just a question of which one of these 3 will be the first Tika tribe members to return to Survivor. It's got to be one of them, right, Mike? You take that bet any day of the week.
Any day. You know what?
Carolyn, Carson, which Tika tribe member is going to be the first to return to Survivor? That's us. Go to Vegas right now. Put some money on one of those 3.
Oh, yeah. I'm mortgaging my house. I'm selling the sanctuary. I'm pushing all in. This has to be.
No doubt about it. One of those 3 has got to be the first Tika to return to Survivor.
I would absolutely bet on it. And you know what? I will admit I will have to jump off early after while I'm watching the show. So I'm going to watch the after show until 10:45. And then I'll be confident that nothing after that will tell me anything different.
Yeah. Yep. Wild. That's wild. Okay. All right. Mike, so much to get into here.
Yeah.
How are you feeling only 48 hours from the finale?
Yeah, it's an odd feeling because for the life of me, I can't think of a season like this for so many reasons. In particular, seeing really a tale of 2 cities where the first half, I think people thought was fine and then verged on not so fine when a lot of production stuff happened, culminating in that episode 7, which some would consider one of their least favorite episodes of the show. But it has been pointed out by so many of us in the past month plus, it's almost like we excised the toxins from our body and we're clean living from Brandon's boot on. It's so interesting to see. I think maybe the last time I could really think of a season like that is something like Karamoan, which had maybe the worst pre-merge ever, and then like a pretty sterling post-merge. Now, that being said, I think especially as we are starting to gauge how we look back on this season, our press cohort, Dalton Ross, decided to put his rankings out there and put it about somewhere in the middle. I think people are debating how much of a mixed bag this season is, as they were drawing out of a lot of bags over the course of this season. So even looking back further upon like the amount of time that has passed, this does feel like one of the longest seasons, ironically enough, because so much has been packed into each and every episode.
Sure. And of course, we're going to shift to 90-minute Survivor episodes coming up this fall. So we've got that to look forward to, and a lot else going on. If you're following for people who are not on social media, it was also announced that Big Brother is going to actually kick off in August. So we will have.
So if, for an equivalent, remember episode 4 when 3 people went to the journey and like each got an idol and came back, and people are like, this is way too much to keep track of. We are essentially now experiencing that as reality TV fans. We are now in those seats, getting to take in, having to account for all these different shows covered at once. Listen, it's an absolute labor of love, but I'm not speaking out of turn when I say I think this might be the first time in the Big Eyes history when all 3 of its major reality shows will be airing concurrently.
Not to mention that, Mike, but also you have the show that's on 3 times a week, and then Survivor and Amazing Race shifting to 90-minute episodes as well.
Yeah, we really are eating good. They are shoveling it down our throats at this point. I'm going to like unhinge my jaw and hork in as much as possible. Bring me more stuff. Throw more international reality shows at me,
Wow. Okay. But that's a problem for us in the fall, come September. But we will get into all that down the road. But yeah, it's interesting. The tale of 2 halves of the season. We really did have sort of like the really jam-packed first half of the season. Jam-packed. Which was also, in addition to like overly convoluted with the twist, we also had the issue of like all the women got voted out. And then we had the second half of the season where I will say that I don't really feel like that we had a ton of like shocking blindsides. I feel like that maybe Danny is the one I'd put into that category. You also had Danny played the idol on Franny and Blindside. So, but I feel like overall, I feel like that we didn't have like crazy Survivor episodes, but for the most part, they were pretty like, twist free, which we really liked.
I would say solid is a good way to describe this post-merge. Like each episode had very coherent stories. It allowed us these holes in order to develop some of these characters that we hadn't got to know due to them not really going to tribal council in the pre-merge. I mean, this post-merge has really been the emergence of Heidi, someone who is going to become very integral to our end game here. Like you said, I think also not needing time to sort of explain new mechanisms certainly helps with that. And I will say, I agree with what you said earlier with Owen earlier this week about how, maybe a move this season does not compare to what Jesse pulls on Cody, but like nothing really can. We talked about this last season. Like that was just an all-time move. That being said, this season has been so fun. I think that's really what I've been sponging from a lot of this season is just how much fun it is. Even going back to this pre-merge, which I think does have its highlights. I was a big fan of episode 5. I know some people were a little on and off of like, we didn't technically get a tribal council, but this is just such a fun group. Even looking back to like the time we spent with Jam, Carolyn, and Josh on Tika Beach is some of the funniest content we've experienced in the show's history. The 3 of them just batting things back and forth. No matter what, I agree that like the outcomes to me don't need to be jaw-dropping, incredible gameplay. And indeed, I think part of the reason why it might not be is because the story of the season is how this trio was essentially able to flummox 15 other people and do the impossible and become, in my opinion, one of the best alliances in Survivor history. And so I'd rather supplement that with like really fun character moments and one-liners and goofball stuff than, necessarily having to try to surprise the audience with some sort of strategic maneuver.
Yeah. And then coming into this finale, like, do you feel like that your viewing enjoyment has been impaired by any way in that it's been so much focused on the Tika 3?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I feel like the editing style this season has kind of reverted back to like a pre Survivor 40 edit style. Very old school in my opinion where okay, we've got a clear cut of like these are our main characters. Then there's a step below and like here's some fun supporting characters, your Matts, your Frannies, your Dannys, your Jamies. And then there's a step below of like well, these people are certainly visible, but I think if you filled out a Sporkle quiz 3 years from now, you may take a minute or so to guess their name. I don't think anyone's necessarily below that. We haven't gone the level of like full out purpling people, but I do think it's interesting compared to seasons like 42 and 43, which I do believe on record were like some of the most evenly edited seasons of all time. We've taken a step back. And
Mm-hmm.
I really am of a couple minds of that because I was a fan of them doing it. I can understand how people felt, okay, the personal stories are too cloying, but like I am someone who tries to digest the game through the people. It's what I love to do is getting to talk with these people every week. And so I enjoyed getting to like actually get to know them as people rather than distillations of who they are as characters. That being said, like this story is so good that I could understand the tendency to not
Mm-hmm.
go that way. I mean, you and I both got the chance to talk with Jamie, someone who I think perhaps in a season 42 or 43 would have her personality sketched out a bit more. She is one of the only people this season did not get a personal story package. Instead, I think she got one of the more two-dimensional edits, as delightful as it was. It felt very old school to me in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't complain too much about the edit because I've always said how much I enjoy Australian Survivor and
Mhm.
how they really do focus on their stars there. So I can't be a hypocrite and then say when it comes to US Survivor that I have a major problem with it. I can understand why for the players themselves,
Right.
as somebody who has had a bigger edit and has not had a bigger edit, I definitely understand, being on both sides of that. So I feel like that for Survivor, I do think that they have a obligation to their audience as well to provide them with the, most engaging content. And I feel like that they tend to try to gravitate towards that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that at the end of the day, they're going to tell what's the best story. I think it also helps when they have a clearly defined narrator. What I did find interesting in a lot of, the research that some lovely people have done over the course of this past week is that I do believe Jam Jam, if he gets make I think a dozen confessionals or so during the finale, might verge on like the top 10 confessional giver of all time in terms of
Wow.
quantity, which is interesting because I don't really take it as one of those seasons where it's been like all about him. Maybe it's because Carolyn has just taken like so much of the non-talking time, I would say. She's like the queen of the B-roll of the reaction shot that I think we tend to pay attention to her a bit more. But this does feel one of the first seasons in a while where we do have like an actual genuine narrator who not only brings the personality, but then also pairs it with like the strategic dominance and ability to go far. Someone like yourself, I would say, who is able to say, okay, I'm a big character, so I'm entertaining in confessionals, but also I happen to be in a good position of the game, so I'm guaranteed to make it far as well.
Yeah, Jam Jam has also had the luxury of being with Carolyn the entire time and being able to be sort of like the person to react to what Carolyn is doing also. So I think that that
Yeah.
also has
Yeah.
helped his confessional count.
And I think what also helps for him as well was actually the way he was hurt in the beginning, which is Tika consistently going back to tribal council. Like he got a lot of content there. And then also in the beginning of the merge, Carolyn was safe for those first couple of votes. And Jam Jam was the target at Mergatory, and he was a target for the Mat Boot as well. And so that gave him also a lot of time to be able for him to say, like,
Yeah.
okay, now we're dedicating a lot of time to him talking, and how can he spin his way out of this?
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the things going on this week. Mike, you touched on your thoughts on Jamie. Anything else that you want to highlight from your conversation with Jamie?
Jamie is the Connor Roy of Survivor.
Oh, I love it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it so much, right? This person who is affectionately aloof, at least the way she's personified to us, but like, dang it, her heart is so in the right place. I was really expecting after she got voted out, right, to say, alas, Survivor,
Mhm.
karma, alas, karma, Fiji.
Last plants. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely adore the enthusiasm that she brings. And again, I go back and forth about this. I'm like Jam Jam with my heart and my gut, because on the one hand, I love getting to know these players as people. And to your point, it does break my heart sometimes to see people kind of have their qualities boiled down to these like bare essentials that then get strewn through a pasta maker for us to try to gobble up
Ooh,
as
pasta.
viewers. There's a lot that gets lost there in terms of coloring people out, and people have certainly gotten those unfair edits over the course of the show. And part of me does feel bad for like the Jamie Dodo edit, right? The fact that they have clowned on her so much for this fake idol, considering they had the appearing and disappearing lower third pop up. You could tell how much fun they had with her. And I'm so glad she had fun back, because I could certainly see a different type of person be like, F this. This show absolutely trashed me. My dream became a nightmare. Screw this show. They run you through the system. They don't care about you. But at the same time, like, again, I don't necessarily hate that she served more of a purpose on the season than perhaps us getting to know her as a person. Because I still feel like we got to know her as a person. We got to know her love of plants. Like, she wore her heart on her sleeve or through her teeth, considering how enthusiastic she was. And so, while perhaps the runner of Jamie thinks she knows what's going on and she actually doesn't can be really embarrassing on paper, I actually feel like, I don't know, in the moment, it felt more savory because it didn't feel as biting to me.
Yeah, I mean, she certainly had her share of like memorable moments, and I think that the editors really loved her. That moment where her idol is gone, she's like, "No," and it fades away. I do like the ways that the production is having fun with some of these people, and so I do think that that is part of going on Survivor, where not everybody is going to get like this like fully fleshed out like three-dimensional edit. Some people are going to just to be a little bit more there as like sort of like the periphery characters.
I mean, you might be the plants compared to perhaps the animals, the flora to the fauna.
Mhm.
Now, I guess again, the thing that I'll bring up is that that doesn't usually seem to be typical in the new era. I know that there's been some commentary, obviously, about like the Heather of it all, but again, I do feel like the trail we had been going on up to this point was not necessarily going in that direction. I mean, I guess I'm thinking about like maybe James from last season had one of the most quote unquote villainous edits that we've had, but that has felt fairly mild and he still had a personal backstory. Jamie stuck out to me so much. And that being said, again, I'm not completely mad at it, mostly because Jamie isn't mad at it. So part of me is like, well, if the person who should be slandered by it doesn't have a problem with it, then why should I? But if we're looking ahead at 45, I'll be really intrigued to see, in general, how much are they taking from 44? Both from a structural perspective, did they pull a Big Brother 17 to a point you made on know-it-alls and be like, who needs the binder anymore? Screw the binder. We're just going to go with like a cleaner game and hope that the players bring us what they want. Or from an editing style of, okay, if there's a few people that are really sticking to us, let's stick to them and everyone else will get their due.
Well, I do think that the audience has responded in a way to the Survivor 44. And I don't know if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that I do feel like that everybody just is loving, the Tika 3. And if not specifically, the Jam Jam and Carolyn. And I think that that's because, and they are both like all-time characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the show is like, hey, this we are like being proven right to give you so much of them.
Yeah, I haven't really seen a lot of complaints of people being like, too much of these. I mean, I do think it has ebbed out maybe in the middle part of the season when there was so much content dedicated to like them and the showmans that we were saying, Heidi who, Lauren who. I do think that's fleshed out a bit by the time we get to the end. Now, that being said, I did see a confessional chart by time, which is one of my new favorite metrics that has been discovered. And I believe like Jam Jam and Carson and Carolyn, like Jam Jam's at like, Carolyn I think is at like 19 minutes total confessional time. Jam Jam's at 16. Carson's at 11 because that's how old he looks. And then I think Heidi's on 7 and Lauren's on 5. So like there's still a big disparity, but perhaps it's other types of personal segment information. I still feel like I'm not walking in saying, who the hell are these people? Now, maybe I'm walking in and saying, like, who the hell are these, 5th and 4th place finishers, considering what that means for their winning odds.
Okay.
But I do think that the disparity is there, but it doesn't feel that way,
All right.
perhaps.
Well, let's talk about this in terms of the game, Mike.
All right.
Do you feel like that we are headed towards an all Tika final three? Could you handicap that for us in terms of how likely you think that might be?
Oh, I mean, like, do you want me to go to sleep and we can talk about this dream scenario? Because it ain't happening anytime soon. But if we want to
Hmm.
crack open the fan fiction, skip past some of the less salacious parts, yeah, we can get
Whoa.
into how the Tikas get to the final three.
Okay. Please enlighten us.
Well, I think here's the thing. This is going to color our entire talk about this prognosticating of the finale, right? Lauren's gone at 5.
I think
Uh,
Lauren's gone to 5. I agree.
because here's the thing, this is a trend that we have been seeing in the new era, and I do think that this past vote maybe bucked the trend of like, oh, the final 6 vote is this big seismic shift. I would say of the final 6 votes we've had so far, this was one of the most anticlimactic, especially compared to like, we have been spoiled rich with the Omer boot and the Cody boot, which are two of the best episodes of not only the new era, but perhaps of the series. And so, like, it was always tough to live up to that. But I still think the show was really well done, and we could talk about it more of like getting to weigh out the problems that come with cutting one of your closest allies, which is still 44 seasons, 23 years in, something that is incredibly impossible to do when you are playing out there with living, breathing, burping people. Now, that being said, I do think that the final 5 vote has been a constant throughout this new era, and that it is almost always going to be, okay, this is our last regular vote of the season. Why rock the boat? There's going to be someone out there who is a threat, either from a challenge perspective, from a social perspective, from a strategic perspective. Let's get rid of them. Then we go into the final 4, start rolling the dice when it comes to the fire stuff and see what happens. And I don't think it's coincidental that we have gotten like Ricard, we've gotten Lindsay, and we've gotten Carla. 3 people who I think were mostly voted off, right? Because they were looking at the crowd and they were saying, I don't care what votes you were left out of recently. Like, you are a big threat to win. And this is our opportunity to take care of you. So we don't give you the opportunity to win a challenge or make fire. This is the last time you can put pen to parchment and vote somebody out. And so the final 5 vote has become huge and by proxy, incredibly straightforward in the new era. And so I think that all being said, that's going to key into, okay, if Lauren loses immunity, she's been on a roll. She's got a lot of friends on the jury. Let's not give her an opportunity to slip through to 3.
One of the things that we found out from the On Fire with Jeff Probst, the official Survivor podcast, that Jeff said that there is going to be an idol hidden at the final 5. This is a departure from what we've done in the past, which has been a advantage in the challenges. Do you feel like that something happened where Survivor did not like the way that was going and that there was a reason why they wanted to make that switch from an advantage to an idol?
Oh, that's a really interesting point. I didn't even think about how that might correlate to like, oh no, all the big people are going, I guess better that than, I don't know, making Final 5 fire or stacking dominoes at Final 5 or however you logically build out next. My logic was really simple. An idol was spent at 6. There are no idols left in the game. The next time you can play one is at 5. I think if you look at the Final 5 in our other new era seasons, there was still at least one idol that was still in the game. And so they felt, okay, we don't want to throw another one in. They very rarely do. We mentioned Island of the Idols before. One of the highlights of that very raucous finale was the hunt that they went on where there was still an idol in the game. Janet had an idol, but they threw another one in. I feel like that's a rarity. I know Jeff said in that episode, like, yeah, we don't really know. We don't have a hard and fast rule. Maybe there's a custom that he's not aware of that they have just been accidentally subscribing themselves to. By and large, it's almost always been like one idol in, one idol out. Take a penny, leave a penny, especially when it comes to post-merge idols, which I think then goes into, the big kind of fan fiction theory as to whether or not Heidi actually found the idol when they woke up that morning.
Do you think there's a chance of that?
I mean, there's a chance, but I think it's a small one.
I was surprised how many people subscribe to that theory. I'm really out on that. I rewatched the episode again, and Heidi was even talking about like post immunity challenge about how she will she would have she could play her idol tonight, but she wanted to use it for the next tribal council. So I think it would be super unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, maybe they just cut off after Heidi said not, and turns out that she did have two idols. Danny has been kind of doing those confessionals the entire season. There's that secret scene, right, where he was like, I'm just so sad. I couldn't read letters from home or eat empanadas, except I found this. So he's the master.
He also did earlier in the season, like, I found the advantage and I'm going to tell everybody. Just kidding. I'm not going to tell anybody.
Is Danny the Sacha Baron Cohen of Survivor?
Okay.
Between all the characters he does?
Yeah, I guess he does De Niro face.
He does like to do like sort of candid camera things, right? Where he like hid the fake idol to see how Matt would react when he found it.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
He was talking about he wanted to get a letter from my wife.
Exactly. He likes to, he's interested in how other people react with their emotions, but he doesn't care about his own emotions, more of that sort of purveyor, overlooker of things. It could turn out that Danny Massa was just a Sacha Baron Cohen character this entire time.
That's, I thought, yeah.
Yeah,
it could have happened.
Will the snake eat the bow rat at the end of the day? I don't even know what we were talking about.
We're talking about that could Heidi have had two idols?
Oh, yeah, I think no, I would not imagine so. I think people were asking, like, what's the purpose of them getting up at the ass crack of dawn? First, it's Jeff Probst's work ethic brought to life, right? Of like, you bust your butt every minute while you're on Survivor. And B, I think it was a really easy way to segue in Heidi's statement of, just as a reminder, I have a hidden immunity idol because I'm going to use it this episode. I think that was the easiest way to do it. Now, she does bring it up later on in the episode, but I think it was just a nice way to segue it in of like, everyone's looking for idols. Good thing I have mine already that I will use a day from now.
Okay. So we're in agreement. We think Lauren goes out at 5. What do we think happens next?
Rob, I'm here to come espousing a truth.
Okay.
A little bit of a surprising truth. Now, I do think Tika's going to win this game. This is their story at the end of the day, but I do think that another character will rise and not only perhaps sit alongside that winning Tika, nearly take the throne themselves. I am here to preach the gospel of Heidi Lagares Greenblatt. Not only do I think that she will be our first runner-up for Survivor 44, I think for the first time in the new era, I think it's going to be close.
Okay. All right. So you think Heidi, you're predicting a second place finish for Heidi.
I do. And I maybe did my own speculative oops all Heidi read over / watch over / listen over.
Okay.
It all started getting unlocked for me, like the infamous vague maze of season 42. When I was listening to On Fire and they sort of did their own big previously on recapping everyone's journey. And Jeff was very kind to Heidi, I would say. I was really piqued by him talking about, like, yes, she didn't use the control a vote advantage, but this is what she was trying to accomplish.
He said it was a savvy move, which you think was not full tilt bookie.
As opposed to a sweaty move. Could that be the thing? Is you have to make either savvy moves or sweaty moves?
I think so. Every move is either a savvy move or a sweaty move.
What's more, then he talks about, okay, she used this idol, but it's okay. You want to guarantee yourself another day in this game. Maybe this is me reading between the lines a little bit too much, but like, allow me to do so. I've watched enough Survivor here. I'm wondering if this is building towards Heidi stringing together a fairly impressive run here in the finale to get there. And considering how much of a lot of these modern day votes has been a bit of like that, what have you done for me lately? It could accumulate, I'd say, a few votes. And listen, 3 is nothing to sneeze at in an 8-person jury.
Yeah. I have speculated that I think that Heidi could potentially be the final 4 immunity challenge winner and potentially put herself into the fire to beat Carson.
I don't know how far that would get, though. That could be something possible. I just don't know how big of a risk she would want to take doing that.
I think she might say, I got to take a big swing. I mean, we've seen all these juries of saying like, hey, Why didn't you make the fire, Cassidy?
I didn't realize Rupert was on the jury.
Yeah. He often is. And so then we what if Heidi, who is a big fan, could recognize that and say, hey, if I'm gonna beat one of these Tikas, I gotta show off a big move here.
See, now the only thing I can imagine, sorry to get off track, is Rupert as the Dr. Will of Survivor of all right, jury, let's talk about these final four.
I don't think that Dr. Will and Rupert have ever been compared before.
Well, there's a first time for everything. Both were very popular in the year 2003.
Both are very popular in the year 2003, but other than that, I think they're complete opposites. One is very hairy, and one is famously hairless.
Yeah, do you think Rupert should go see Dr. Will?
Look, I don't know if does Rupert have a lot of tattoos?
No, I don't believe so. Rupert loves elephants. Dr. Will loved a pot-bellied pig. I feel like that's within the same family.
Sure.
Okay, so going back to the Heidi of it all, yeah, I think what is interesting watching it all back is that Heidi's game has been really low-key, but there are a couple of things that are interesting to sort of poke at from the very beginning. Franny talks during that infamous Matt vote out about oh, Heidi's very receptive. She's someone who takes other people's opinions into account, but at the end of the day, she'll do what she wants. We forget, but during that first Soka vote, she was personified as the swing vote as well. Now, look, I'm not going as far to say as Heidi is going to be the winner of the season, but I think inevitably, when we get the other two Tikas in the final three, all eyes are going to be on them. I don't think we should be surprised to see if one of them finishes third and one of them finishes first, and we have a nice, delicious Heidi sandwich.
Can you give me, in your mind, okay, Heidi is in the final three, hypothetically. Who are the Heidi votes? You think she is getting the Sokas on? She's getting Matt and Franny?
So yeah, this is something that I'd love to talk about, because while I am talking up the possibility of Heidi finishing as our first runner-up, I did not like the decision that she made here at the final six. As you talked about with Owen, it was very much a move to get further versus a move to win. And I do think she shut off any potential of her actually winning the game. She may come close here, but not fully take it because of what she made, which was mainly to not use whatever tools she had handy to take out one of the Tikas. The best she can guarantee now is to go to the finale, to the final three with two of them. And I understand the logic on paper in your wildest imaginations of, well, if I'm sitting next to Carolyn and I'm sitting next to Jam Jam, they're going to split the votes. And then I'll take the rest. What is the rest? What votes? Where are the votes coming from? Those people are voting for Carolyn or Jam Jam. There are no ghosts that come sifting through tribal council and say well, we'll be the plurality for you, Heidi. That has been one of the biggest logical fallacies for me in Survivor. And I love Laurel so much, but ever since she espoused that, of going to the end with Dom and Wendell, of the jury will be so split that surely I will take it with the plurality. You need votes to be able to do that. And I think that comes down to the idea of the tribal lines, because you could say, oh, she'll get the votes of the Sokas. I don't think she will. The thing about the Sokas is that Ratu has been personified as this big chunky block. It's even been talked about in postseason press. Tika has been personified as this big chunky block that's dominated the game. Ain't no chunk in Soka. We saw before the swap that there were two pairs, and Matt and Franny and Danny and Heidi, and Josh was in the middle of them. Franny and Danny were targeting each other during Franny's boot episode. I think of all three tribes, Soka would be the one to least have tribe loyalty and be you know what, Heidi? Good for you. Let's do it for green and give you some of the green.
Soka, low-key, was actually a bad tribe, Mike.
I mean, what I find
they came in with numbers, they were pretty decent in the challenges, but they look that they voted out Claire in the pre-merge. They could not wait to vote out Josh. And then Matt and Franny wanted to keep each other, but Matt and Franny were talking about voting out Danny. Danny saved Franny with an idol, but then worked to engineer her blindside. That Heidi voted for Danny and didn't get discovered. Like they were like the last scene in Reservoir Dogs the entire season, and they just managed to all get really far in the game.
Yeah, I mean, should we be looking back at Timbira and Galoo with brighter eyes of like, I didn't know how bad it was? I'm so sorry. Because yes, Soka absolutely crushed. And they did not even benefit from like Rat 2, which was very cohesive during the pre-merge, starting with absolute chaos, yet somehow solidifying from that chaos. We thought they had this unifying vote, and they got to the merge and were like, yeah, we actually don't really get along with each other. It's a really interesting like sub fallout to see. And I do think one of the interesting narratives from this season is like how the Ratus and Sokas will consistently blame one another for allowing the Tikas to get further. Because you look at it like, you know, Danny choosing to just willy-nilly join up with the Ratus and not really extending that emotional olive branch. Heidi choosing to go after Danny. Matt and Franny assuming that they had Brandon with them and, you know, not choosing to finagle the groups their way. Jamie and Lauren choosing to vote out Danny / Heidi instead of going with the Tikas. Like, it's so interesting to see how this trio obviously gets here on their own merit, but I think is also able to benefit from some of the short-sightedness of the people around them that I think is due both to like the fantastic misting on their part, but also I think some of the honest blinders that players always have up. Obviously, again, this is, you know, a statement I shouldn't have to say, but these people are not pulling an Outlast and going back to the camera tent and rewatching all the day's footage. They don't understand everyone's perspective on it. And so I do think the decisions that they're making make sense from their own point of view. So to go back to the Heidi of it all, you know, her feeling like, okay, they'll split the votes and I'll get the Sokas and maybe a couple of other ones and I'll carry through. That is not happening, in my opinion. Now, that being said, if she makes a surge towards the end, if she wins Final 5 and Final 4 immunity, or she finds an idol and plays it at Final 5 and wins Final 4 immunity, or she finds an idol and she underwoods herself successfully, or she plays an idol and she wins Final 4 immunity, I think we're going to get some sort of combo of that. You talked about this on Know-It-Alls, the personal package showing her deadlifting. She made fire in the first episode.
That's impressive.
Yeah, talk about how like underestimated she is. And the final immunity challenge is almost always something balance related, something hand-eye coordination. Don't look now. Who finished in second place in the last 2 individual immunity challenges? Heidi. And so I think there's a chance if she does work her way from being the last Soka into the final 3, that could earn the respect of at least a couple of jurors. I think somebody like Lauren, especially if Carson is not in the final 3, someone that she apparently was super close with, could vote for someone like Heidi as an example.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think the final immunity challenge is going to be?
All right, so let's go through the list here. And special thanks to Mike Kimura, who I think listed out the full thing, because we basically are going off of 3 general designs, right? We have Sim Motion, classic. We have the stacking the levers on the wobbly platform, the upside down U memorial challenge. And then we have sort of like a more umbrella-y navigate balls or dishes through a precarious operation-esque obstacle.
And we just did that last season.
Yeah, and we just did that last season. Now, that being said, we just repeated like last gasp at Final 7. We just repeated the ball challenge at Final 6. So there's a chance they might repeat it back-to-back.
They might, but I don't think they've done it back-to-back on any of the season. Did they? I think they did some motion in 40 and then in 42.
Yeah.
But not in 41. So I feel like that they don't really do these Final 4 challenges back-to-back. So I feel like that we're going to get one of the other 2.
Yeah, so I think maybe we're overdue for the stacking the letters either on the wobbly boards, or I think the one Xander one, right, wasn't that. It was just making the tower and walking it back slowly on the rope.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're probably due for some version of that.
Yeah, so I think if she ends up winning, whether or not she puts herself in, whether or not she just wins on through. Now, my fan fiction is that she wins and she takes Jam Jam with her, because I think this is speaking to the power of Jam Jam's arc, right? Which is this apparent close connection that we have that you've been speculating towards, and her ability to say, like, I want to sit in the end with him. I have this final 3 picked out. I will send Carolyn there against Carson because she is one of the best fire makers, and I am going to like be the one to slay him. Albeit I'll be the one remote controlling the droid instead of the soldier out on the field being able to take down Bin Laden.
Okay. So you feel like that Heidi could win the Final Four immunity challenge, and then she would put Carolyn, who made fire until she bled, into and take out Carson.
Yeah, and I think that would make sense as well because it's really a win-win, is it not, from her perspective of like, hey, these are the two biggest threats left in the game. One of them goes, no matter what. They can't, both make fires at the same time, tie, and then I get eliminated a la Saray.
Mm-hmm. I just like part of me feels like that she's gonna do it herself.
You just think it's her really putting her life on the line. It just feels too risky.
It feels too risky, but then every season we talk to the jury and like, well, they should have made them make the fire because I did the burning question this week and I talked about when should you vote out your alliance. Mike, the person that won the Final Four challenge hasn't won the game since Chris Underwood.
Yeah.
And the jury always says, well, yeah, I mean, you could have made the fire. That was, we were really looking for you to make the fire. And everybody always the Final Four immunity challenge, a winner loses the game every time.
It's an interesting point. Could this be playing into the Rick Devens effect of the jury want to be entertained at Tribal Council, and so they have more of an affinity sometimes for the person who is able to create the literal fireworks and create this big bombastic ending in front of them, as opposed to, yeah, what did you do? Stack some bowls? We weren't even watching that. We were binging M&Ms and playing PlayStation 5. We don't care about that. What have you done for me lately?
You think they have PlayStation 5 at Ponderosa? I bet they have like PlayStation 2 at Ponderosa.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know, especially in this new 26-day format. I don't know if they're paying for the most high quality. They're not playing not going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom at 46 Ponderosa. I bet you that.
Yeah. I would like to see somebody win the Final Four challenge and then at Tribal Council say, Jeff, I'm going to be taking out the trash tonight. Put me in.
I mean, fun way to regard someone that you'd be sending to the jury, sure.
Oh, sure. I forgot about that.
You dump truck of a person. Come here.
Yeah. I guess like my dream is one day to see somebody win the Final Four challenge, put themselves in it and lose. That would be also incredible.
Well, that would be like Eric Reichenbach has been, I think, praying for that since the moment this twist was announced, right? Because he's like, finally, I will no longer be the most played clip in Survivor history because Jeff will always go back to that one person who put their life on the line in a much, much worse way.
Yeah. Okay. So we think that Heidi is getting in there. And Mike, you're a truther of Carson goes to fire.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have to at this point, right? Like, I have bought the bed. I have decorated the bed. I've tucked the corners in and I've made it. I might as well lie in it. This is what we've been espousing on the B&B for like the past month at this point, is that Carson is going to go out in fire.
I think Liana might have been the first person to really get that out there.
Yeah, and all the credit to her because it makes sense. Like, people are saying, oh, it's too obvious. They're showing all the fire in his glasses. Jeff Probst does say he makes the show with kids in mind. I've watched a lot of shows with my now 4-year-old. Repetition is key. The only thing they need to do is just put a little Steve from Blue's Clues-esque song in there of like, Carson's gonna make fire, to make us remember that Carson's probably gonna make fire at the Final Four.
Yeah. Can I share this with you? This
Please.
was on the subreddit today that made me laugh. Okay. Mike, a post about a new Carson theory. This is from user Baldy McBadass.
Hold on, let me get my readers on.
Okay.
Right,
yeah. Fire glasses. I
can't see shit.
Yeah, these are Mike is like I've minimized him too small, but you can see his Amazing Race era costume, his fire glasses.
This took so much to fit together. I went to so many different stores. This is the 4th place I went to get these. 4th place.
Yeah. So this is from Baldy McBadass. Says, for weeks it's been theorized that Carson is going to be in the Final Four fire making due to the foreshadowing of flames reflected in his glasses in shots like this. But what if it's more nefarious than that? What if the editors are foreshadowing something much, much worse? What if Carson is going to burn it all to the ground in a blaze of fire? What if, knowing his chances are dashed and he has no hope, he decides to set fire to the new camp and let the survivor gods sort it out? And what is that act of burning everything called? It's called Arson. What is he seeing? He's seeing fire. So in other words, he's seeing arson. See arson. Carson. It's been right in front of us the whole time.
I can only imagine. Jeff's like, one of our most unpredictable seasons ever, culminated in one contestant committing a major crime and burning down our set due to anger from being eliminated. That's the passion we want to
literally
see.
on fire.
Exactly.
Fire represents your life.
My God, the clues were there for us all along. That was the ending. Was that we want to say what would happen in a Tika Final 3. I want all of them to win. And I guess the ending is going to be all of them are declared the winner because the set is burned down and there are minor degree burns. Now, here's the interesting twist ending, is that the young man himself gets consumed in the very flames that he begins. The chaos comes back around. The scorpion has stung the frog, but it's okay. We have the technology. In Ponderosa, we see Jeff Probst, Matt Van Wagenen working hard, drills seizing, coconut husks being chopped off, nuts being hammered.
Chopped off nuts.
Yeah, it's a tough sight as eventually a seat comes into frame, a helmet gets put on, and we see the rise of Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. Yeah, also spent a lot of time in space.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, Carson has a lot of attachment to Carolyn, which is his on-island mother. Anakin Skywalker also had a lot of attachments to his mother. Shmi is a sound that Carolyn has probably made at some point.
Friend of Jam Jam Binks.
Carson, Miso like this so much.
Misa gonna poop in the ocean.
Misa bound to poo in the ocean. Canny.
So, wow. And then I guess, and then we see in the future seasons, he comes back as the ultimate villain.
Exactly. And like, there's no one that's going to be able to take him down except for his own son.
Yes. Okay. Wow. So this is all got very real.
Yeah. And then I think what happens is that Carson's finally defeated in his second season, lying on the ground, prone. His son takes off his mask and he goes like, just give me one bro hug. I think I finally figured it out. And his son bro hugs him after they throw Jeff Probst down a reactor shaft.
Wow. Okay. This is episode 44, A New Hope. All right. So you are thinking it is going to be Jam Jam, Carolyn, Heidi, final 3.
I have to imagine that Heidi mentioning it in this episode was a way for us to Jamie style manifest it. That the magic wand, like the Elder Wand, has transferred users. Heidi has taken it forward and she's going to manifest this path, including this final 3.
Okay, so I too think that this will be the final 3 of the season. My thought and the thing that I've been sort of trying to wrap my head around is that what do you think the reaction will be if that, because we've seen it's been such a story of the season that people are not understanding Carolyn and she does know what's going on and people are disregarding her. And I feel like that traditionally, I feel like that Survivor would not give you that. I feel like that it's sort of like you would get the, like maybe the player saying that after the season, but you would sort of like get the truth of the players who are like voting. I almost feel like that people will be especially upset if the jury doesn't see what Carolyn does, especially in that scenario that you're outlining where Carolyn is a third place finisher.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I have theorized 2 different types of edits that look similar but operate very differently. It's the tortoise and the turtles, perhaps, of victory edits. In my opinion, there are winner edits and there are vindication edits. So a winner edit, obviously, as the name indicates, is an edit ascribed to a person who will ultimately go on to win the season. Obviously, a lot of chatter throughout about like their own gameplay, them as the center of a narrative, of personal growth, perhaps, and how it culminates in this giant win in the end. A vindication edit, in my opinion, looks very similar. Throughout the season, it's talking about how they have gone from essentially one place to another, about how they are becoming someone that they never thought that they would be in a positive way. But it does not culminate in a win. Instead, it culminates in more of a personal win. The one that I think about probably the most in terms of what a vindication edit indicates is Michelle Fitzgerald from Survivor 40. That
Mhm.
a lot of us were surprised in the final tribal council. Okay, we got a lot of this like Michelle underdog stuff throughout Winners at War. How does she get no votes at the final tribal council? And we'll talk about maybe one reason why and how that actually might play out into the final tribal council as well for my own prognostications. But I think for Carolyn, I could very easily see a situation where what we have seen so far is kind of her arc. Is she came in the turkey and she took flight. As God is my witness, I didn't know turkeys could fly. And she
Mhm.
was able to the point where she became the big threat that was nearly voted out in the last episode. I would adore if Carolyn Weiger was in the Survivor winner's circle. She nearly has all the letters for the title. But I do wonder if we look back on this next week and say, how did Carolyn get 0 votes? How did Carolyn get 1 vote? She got all this content about like how she was unabashedly being herself. And, she was able to succeed because of that. And it's more so just playing into, for her, the victory was in getting there and earning that respect in the first place, just not through jury votes.
Now, I don't know if we specifically said if Carolyn or Jam Jam would win, but you presume that in that final 3, the Jam Jam would be the winner, right? Is there a path to victory for Carolyn?
I mean, the past 2 seasons have shown how indicative final tribal council performance appears to be at the outset. I know that especially with 43, we kind of go back and forth depending on who you talk to as to like, okay, how open were they? But I think at least production is kind of pushing these modern day juries to walk into a final tribal council with an open mind, an open belly, ready to swallow anything that might be served their way. So I would imagine that things would be relatively up in the air. Just looking at, the way the jury reacts to certain things that
Yeah.
Carolyn's saying. Even someone like Danny, who was her enemy, like certainly had some admiration for her, especially when she had that really nice speech. That's the other thing as well, is like Carolyn vocalized so beautifully. Just an entire conundrum that we have had about the show since its inception, especially nowadays, since we have 23 years of game under our belt of thinking through things only through a strategic lens of perhaps being blinded by the flames of who's making the best move and not so much about the emotions, the living, breathing aspects of the humans that are out there. And I adore the speech that Carolyn gave about how it's not a binary, nor should it be. And I'm here to prove it can be an and rather than an or. And Jeff even uses that to correct himself in his podcast, right? He realizes, yeah, I shouldn't be saying, but it's just a game when I say that, you should be living it as a full out life changing experience. He should be saying and. Instead, it is not an either or decision. What is stuck in my craw a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Murgatory, when we have a pretty hysterical scene of Carolyn attempting to break her way into a new group of compatriots by saying that she likes to sweat, and her summing up that she doesn't do well in group settings. There's a non-zero chance to me that despite the fact that she was incredibly eloquent and vocalized her own performance so well at this tribal council, that when it gets to a very different type of forum, Jam Jam is able to sort of meander more and still endear herself. And Carolyn might stammer a bit more within the larger group setting where now it is not you talking to a bunch of people, but more so a bunch of people now talking to you.
Yeah, I just feel like this might be less about Carolyn and what she does in the final tribal council. I think that if anybody lets Jam Jam get to the final tribal council, I think they do so at their own peril. I think that there is a possibility that we see on Wednesday night. If Jam Jam makes it to the final 3, I think he could be one of the all-time best final tribal council performers. He's so good in these situations. I just think that go back to the tribal council where it was between him and Matt. And he basically gave a final tribal council speech on day 16 about how I am a teddy bear, but I'm also a badass. And I found this about myself. And he's so good. And I just think that he is going to be far and away Anybody who takes him to the end is really asking for a world of hurt, because I just think that Jam Jam has everything of, like, he knows the game so well. He's so personable. He's so funny. He's so likable. He just can do it all. And the fact that people are even considering taking him to the final three just speaks to how good his social game has been.
And that speaks to the delicious spot he finds himself in. The only reason why Jam Jam entertained this notion of taking out Carolyn in the first place is because of all of the outs that he has.
Yes.
It seems like he has this out with Heidi. You and I both spoke with Jamie, who said that she thought this double date, Carson, Jam Jam, Lauren, her alliance, was solidified. She herself was close with Jam Jam. Like, the man has outs because he has perfectly surrounded himself, in my opinion, with at least 3 shields deep. This kid's looking like Randy from A Christmas Story. He's got that many layers on, because I think at this moment, looking at the game, people are going to target Lauren, people are going to target Carolyn, people are going to target Carson above him, no matter what. So
yeah.
I think no matter what, we are guaranteed a Jam Jam Final 3 appearance.
Okay, Jam Jam talked about in this episode about taking out Carolyn. We saw him in his confessional talk about this. We saw him with Carson talk about this. How close do you think that Jam Jam actually was to wanting to vote out Carolyn?
Oh, incredibly close. I think this is something he wouldn't, like, I know he has a flair for the dramatic, as he would probably say, but, like, I don't think he would just completely blow hot air at us the way he did into Carolyn's mouth earlier. I think he was legitimately conflicted about it. Now, that being said, I do think when he got to tribal council, it was theater. I don't think he was sitting there going back and forth. I think he had made up his mind at a certain point. But I do think, again, if we're looking at it from his own perspective, he has played with Carolyn this entire time. I think he would be worried for that inevitable final tribal council question of, what's one thing you did in this game that Carolyn didn't? And I think maybe one reason why someone would want to take a Jam Jam to the end is, like, he does have the story of getting targeted early and being able to come back from that and being the Ari Jam Stark and being able to cross the names off his list at the end of the day. But I think compared to others who have the flashier trinkets and wins and things to show off at tribal council, it's a little bit different. But I also think that plays into the Carolyn, Heidi, Jam Jam of it all. I think we're going to see an outcome and a rationale very similar to the Island of the Idols finish, where I think we are going to get a third placer who is a kooky character, yet was a decision maker in the game. I think we are going to get a second placer who was on the outs a good portion of time, but was able to find a lot of trinkets that ultimately didn't matter, and so therefore was not necessarily the huge winning push to get them the win. The winner will be somebody who barely touched an advantage, barely won immunity, but was able to surround himself with the bigger threats that can easily get cold off over him, perhaps like going to the salon and getting your hair cut so that all that's left is this beautiful hairstyle, and Jam Jam sits there at the end as the social king that he is.
Wow. You tied it back to the haircut. So yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page with everything that you're putting out there. I think that you are, I'm in agreement. No, you've made the great case for Jam Jam. In the episode, Jam Jam tells Carson about, like, we should go after Carolyn tonight. And she's good at fire and she practices until she bled. And Carson said, well, can we get her out at 5? Jam Jam says, no, I don't think we can get her at 5. Why?
Yeah, and I love that you brought this up in your Burning Questions video, which have been amazing, by the way. And I kind of love what you postulated, which is Jam Jam's parenthetical reading after his line is, well, because it'd be you at the final 5 instead of her.
Yeah, that you subscribe to that, because I had postulated that I think that Jam Jam might be sitting here like a Kim Spradlin, and it's like, yeah, I could go with the Tikas, or potentially I could go sit in the end with Heidi and Jamie.
Yeah, I just don't know if he would really want to go to the end. with Heidi and Lauren. You know, this idea of
Heidi and Jamie.
well, I guess it would be Heidi and Jamie, yeah, at this point, because like it would be nice for him to say, "Well, I'm the only Tika, and therefore I get their votes." I don't know if they would be guaranteed. You know, he has talked about how Carolyn is an incredibly emotional player. Is he banking on him burning her and then her coming back 3 days later to be like, you know what, Jam Jam, that was good. You got this in the bag. Here you go. Oh, I don't know if that's necessarily something you want to rely on.
Well, he could tell her like, "Hey, all right, well now you have to get over it."
Is it sort of just the tit for tat of like, okay, well now next time we play, you get to vote me off, and then it just goes back and forth forevermore.
Yeah, I think he considered it. I think he was really going down that path. So, Carson ultimately doesn't want to do it, and so I think he feels. Also, I think he feels like that he is going to be able to beat the three of them in the same way that Kim felt like, "Okay, I can go to the end with Chelsea and Sabrina. I don't need to potentially go to the end with Christina and Alicia. I'm going to go ahead and like I'll stick with my numbers, and I think I could still do the best out of this group of three that I started with."
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, I still believe if it's an all Tika final three, and maybe we could talk that out again, going back to the dream of dreams, how things would go. Because I know you've been saying that like Jam Jam would probably win. I think Carson has it, no matter who he sits against in the final three.
I think that Carson, like I have a lot of respect for Carson and everything that he's going to be able to accomplish, but I stand by that. I think that Jam Jam would be one of the all-time, greatest at the final tribal council. And with all due respect to Carson, I think at 20 years old, I don't think that he is going to be able to outdo Jam Jam in that spot or Carolyn.
I get the age thing, but I think to me, the makeup of this jury is so different to me from like a Cambodia or even a season 41. Like Danny is the only parent on the jury right now. And I think something we talked about in 41 was like the amount of parents that were on there and not necessarily wanting to give money to a 21-year-old kid. This cast is more younger tinged in general. Franny is only like 2 years older than Carson. Could she really say like, well, I can't vote for somebody that young, though I hope that everyone would vote for me if I were to
I
make it to
think
the
he
end?
could. Carson could win against different people. I don't think in the Tika configuration that he could win. And I don't think that his game was that drastically different other than potentially having some of the more influence with the RHAP people. Like, I don't think that he has like a game that's radically different than the other Tikas where he would be able to, out argue them at the final tribal council.
See, I disagree because I don't know what it is. I agree that there's some sort of like je ne sais quoi that's going on with Carson where like for some reason in the Brandon Boot episode, Danny's going to Carson when he probably didn't know him from a hole in the wall. I think Carson could very easily come forward with the point of like, I had great relationships with all of you and I was able to use that to my advantage and sort of like also have this Cochran-esque story of like, I'm the uncool kid and yet I became the most popular girl at the dance that everyone wanted to Watusi with at the end of the day.
But Cochran was in the final three with two people that people had very bitter feelings towards in Dawn and Sherry. And I feel like that part of Carson's appeal is that because he is, he is a young person, but also he presents like as a young person as well. I think that a lot of times when people feel like, oh, he's just a nice kid. And so let me just go ahead and take him. Not to say that he is not duplicitous, and he certainly has shown us in the edit, but I think that if he reveals all that of like just how much he was manipulated, I kind of feel like that people oh, you played on my emotions. Like I feel like that. I feel like it's a little bit of a subtle difference than the person that like, oh, we ignored you and you were actually doing all these things like Marianne or Gabler had. It's like, oh, like we tried to help you because we I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like it won't necessarily, because this is not a Mike Turner situation where Carson's coming in being like, I never told a lie. Call me honest Carson. I think he would come in and be like, yep, let me see. My hands are tinted red. I painted them today to represent the blood that I have right now from everything that I did. I mean, let's go through it really quick. Let's try to count the votes. Let's say it's an all Tika final three. Let's go through
and
see how it would shake out.
All right, up first, Matt.
Matt, I think Matt, This is tough because, like, we didn't see Matt with any relationships outside of Franny.
I think it's Jam Jam.
I mean, I agree that this could be, you made a point before, right, of how some people vote of like, well, neither could live while the other survives. Because you bested us in this metaphoric duel, it goes to you.
Yeah, but I think they also bonded that day. Like, I feel like that they had like a little bit of something even before they got swapped together. So I do think that Matt is very fond of Jam Jam.
I think Matt also that had some off-screen bonds with Carson though as well. Like he told me that he had something going on with Kane, with Carson. So I also think there's a non-zero chance that he could be like, well, Carson, you were able to listen. I'm the baby bird that tried to fly out of the nest. You were the one that actually soared. Let me put my nerd stock in you.
Yes. Also, if Franny is a Carolyn vote, he may just go with the flow.
Oh, is he like the shy Carson voter?
Well, he could just be like, well, if Franny says we're voting for Carolyn, then I will. Like, he's a he's a good boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Of like, oh, you decide what we're gonna have for dinner. I'll
yeah,
just
I'm fine with whatever. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to Brandon because I feel like Brandon is more concrete here.
Yeah, I think he'd be Carson.
I think he'd be Carson. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Ratu that wouldn't vote Carson, if we're being honest.
Okay. Then after Brandon was Kane.
I think Kane would vote Carson here.
I agree. Okay. Then after Kane was Franny.
So Franny is interesting, and this goes into, to go briefly tangential once again, a thing about why I feel like Carolyn might finish in third place here. Is like, oh, some people might say she doesn't deserve third place. Like, why would she only get 1 or 0 votes? There is an extra layer of strategy that occurs within the jury sometimes, I think, of wanting to prevent the outcome Heidi is thinking that may come true. We saw this in the Winners at War jury, right? About how Michelle was told by, 4 or so people, I wanted to vote for you, but I was afraid if enough of us stayed away from Tony, that Natalie would win with a plurality. I would wonder if someone like Franny has so much adoration for Carolyn, wants to be her, but at the same time might have this thinking of, well, listen, if I do throw a vote at her third party style, that might remove a vote from someone like Jam Jam, and therefore we don't have a Tika winner. So let me try to like put my eggs in the more reliable basket, almost like a primary style, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that is possible, but I think for the sake of this exercise, I think we should just go with where they would lean. And I think that based off of what we've seen, Franny leans Carolyn.
Very much so.
Okay. All right. Then after Franny was Danny. Is Danny go for Carson?
I think Danny could go for Carson. I think there's a semi-realistic chance he might even go for Carolyn if she vocalizes her game in a certain way. I think he has a respect for the move she made in playing her idol, but I feel like there is still enough of an inherent disagreement with the way they view the game that I think he'd be hard-pressed to vote for her.
Okay, so right now that's 3 votes Carson, 1 vote Jam Jam, 1 vote Carolyn. Then, as we saw this week, then it would be Jamie. And I think that Jamie, we feel good that she would vote for Jam Jam.
I think so, yeah. I think between the two, Jam Jam was her sort of mission partner, I suppose, in the spy infiltration that she and Lauren were attempting to do.
Do you want to put Heidi or Lauren at
Let's do Lauren
place?
Since we're figuring out that she'll probably be first to go anyway in this
Okay,
finale.
so we think that Lauren would be a Carson vote.
I think so.
And I think that Heidi would be a Jam Jam vote. Is that...
I think it depends on the way she would go out in this case, because now we're drawing a conclusion of like, does she send herself into, if she sends herself into fire against Carson and loses, would she go for Carson?
I think she loves Jam Jam. I think that
Jam Jam.
Okay. So in this case, it would be a 4-3-1 vote for Carson, and that's pretty close.
That's pretty close, and I think that,
and we're very bad at this. Also, going back to we thought there was no way that Gabler was going to win last season.
Now, listen, let's stick up for ourselves a little bit. In the scenario that we prognosticated, we did have Gabler getting like fairly close if in the all hell breaks loose scenario of him, Owen, Cassidy final 3. I think we had
Okay.
Cassidy winning something like 5-3 or 6-2.
Okay, so we're not terrible at this, but this is not necessarily a big margin for her.
Yeah,
This is, we give
solid,
ourselves a 3-vote margin of error.
solid C, I would say. C for Carson in this case.
C for Carson. C Arson. Okay, so that's our prognostication. So I stand corrected that Carson, I think, maybe has a better shot than I had given him credit for in an all Tika final 3.
Which is awesome. Something that I love about the Tika final 3 is that I do feel like if you look at a Survivor cast, usually these are 3 types of people that you would not expect to win. Between like the more heavy set, flamboyant, gay guy, more unathletic, between the very kooky, out there woman, and between the young kid. I mean, you've talked about this beforehand, who usually is not regarded as just, well, you're just this guy that's gonna blow it all on speedboats and honeys and all that stuff. And I think what's so cool about the new era is that it really has reinvigorated, in my opinion, this idea that there are so many different types of people and ways to win the game. And that's another fantastic thing about the idea of a Tika winner here, is that they were able to defy the odds by being themselves, steering into the curve of who they are, rather than trying to steer away and be something that they're not. And hopefully inspiring other people to be like, oh, okay, you can succeed on this show even if you look like that, you're that age, you act like that. Fantastic. I'm going to try out for this thing.
All right, Mike, we've talked about a lot of the strategy and potential final 3 scenarios, but I have a very important question for you that comes to us from one of our listeners. You actually heard her on RHAP a couple of weeks ago, where we punched up her dating profile. Here is Brie, like the cheese.
Oh,
hey, Robsy. Hey, Mike B. You guessed it. It's Brie, like the cheese. First time voicemail leaver, but super happy to talk to you guys.
Okay.
If you choose it. Just wanted to know, where does this interaction with Jam Jam and Carolyn rank amongst other gross, quote unquote, moments involving bodily functions, sounds, smells, things of that sort? Although I don't take offense to it, I fully embrace it as a chronic belcher myself. I was just wondering if there were some other iconic moments or scenes where interesting smells or sounds were involved.
Okay.
Just wanted to get your take on it. I thought the scene was incredibly charming and deeply humanistic, very relatable personally as a burper myself, but would love to hear your thoughts. Alrighty, cheese out.
Cheese out.
I love it.
Oh, bye-bye.
To all. Yes.
Yeah, I love Brie. Her pauses as pregnant as Brenda Lowe in the Survivor Caramoan reunion show.
Yeah, of course. This was the moment that Survivor fans will not soon forget. Oh, hit the wrong button. Here we go.
Can you burp in my mouth or my nose? Oh.
Now, Carolyn did recognize this was a mistake after.
After is the key word there.
Yeah.
We sympathize, right? It's deeply humanistic, as the cheesemongerer says. Like, you say something that you don't mean, and then sooner or later you get a Survivor tattoo on your arm, or a large Puerto Rican man burps in your mouth, which does sound like a category on OnlyFans the more I speak about it.
Yeah. So, Mike, for historical perspective, is this the grossest thing that we've ever seen happen on Survivor?
Well, listen, I believe you did a podcast back in the day about these types of moments, right? Talk about pulling from the archives here. So I'm going to think of a scattering of a few. Well, let's go actually from scattering to scat. Tarzan did throw his shit-covered underwear into the tribe water supply.
I thought it was dirt. That wasn't dirt. It was. I think it was the laundry. I don't think he was the water supply. I think that he was using the pot that they used to boil the water to clean his underwear.
I mean, it's still like adjacent to the stuff that people are trying to rely on, these soul creature comforts that they grasp onto in a game that consistently robs them of them. That's pretty disgusting from a bodily functions perspective. I mean, I guess the question is, are we going for nature as well? The atrocities
I don't think it's necessarily the grossest thing that ever happened, like on the show. Like, I feel like that there's like, these like different eating challenges from the past of the show. I guess the one that really comes to mind is going back to Marquesas, where Kathy had to pee on John's hand.
Yeah. Now that'd be interesting.
I think, you know what? Look, family podcast. I think I would rather be John Carroll,
okay,
and have my hand receive a. I'm not even gonna say it. I would rather be
it's something. It's something.
I would rather my hand be John Carroll's hand than my nose be Carolyn's nose.
Oh yeah, because you can wash that hand pretty quickly. You can't wash that mouth out. That smell's gonna linger throughout your head. It might become a part of your brain forevermore. I'm not sure how gas works. I agree with that. There's also like an intention behind it. It's not like John Carroll was saying, hey, you went on that reward and you drank all that 7-Up. Pee on my hand. I want to see what it feels like. Like there was some experiential element to Carolyn that was less so about first aid. If Carolyn was saying, help, I'm passing out, give me mouth to mouth by burping in my nose, now maybe she'd have a case there.
Yeah, I feel like this is a unique category of like requests from one survivor to another.
Yeah, which I appreciate. I mean, listen, you grow so hungry, quite literally, for a taste back home. Now, I guess the question is, and neither one of us are scientists here, is this something legitimate that could happen? Like, if I spray something in my mouth that resembles chocolate, will I taste chocolate? Is that as good as eating chocolate?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Mike. If you have some sort of like chocolate like breath spray and then you breathe it in my face.
Right. So if you got chocolate breath in your face, does this work? Do you
you would smell it. I don't think you would taste it.
But I feel like those senses are inherently connected with each other.
Yeah. I mean, you can have the smell of a thing, but you would not get the taste of the thing.
I feel like it drips down eventually.
Maybe. I guess it depends on like how. But again, she didn't like. She corrects herself. This is what she says.
Can you burp in my mouth or my nose?
She originally says, can you burp in my mouth? Yeah. I think you would maybe get a taste if she burped in the mouth, but she said nose.
Listen, they're like, there's like an inch apart from each other. It's pretty much a splash zone effect of like, there's no targeted burps. We saw Jam on that slingshot, okay? He's not exactly a master of it. I don't know if he can direct it into one orifice over another one, facially speaking.
Yeah, I don't think there was a taste there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to ask Carolyn about it. That's the first thing we're gonna ask her on Thursday.
No, let's. Yeah, I mean, Carolyn, that was a first. Nobody, I mean, her mind. Nobody's ever thought of that before.
Exactly. I think it
Should that be allowed?
Brilliant. Oh well,
you're not allowed to bring like food back.
Yeah, so I think you instead bring back like the thoughts of it, right? You bring back the sense memories of it. I think that makes sense. Why not scrub your hair with chocolate? Like, take a chocolate shampoo. Do you think they're really going to say, wash your hair? And then you say, come, my children, lick my head.
Yes. I mean, Eric Reichenbach famously wanted to lick Cerie's fingers, right, during the reward challenge.
Not only that, he paid her to lick Cerie's fingers.
And James said that there's something wrong with that boy, right?
Yeah, so I think that, listen, while there maybe is a hard and fast rule for taking from rewards after, it has been sort of forbidden since everyone got pretty liberal with it in the teen era, I think you can absolutely get away with it. I think people had before left auctions covering themselves in chocolate and licking it off. I think it's allowed.
Okay. All right. Mike, let me ask you another interesting question that we got from the listeners this week. This one is from one of our listeners named John.
Hey, Rob, I have a theory for you. In this last episode, we see Jamie talking, and instead of Jam being behind her, we see a tattooed arm of Danny. Most people couldn't believe the editors would do something like this and put it in the episode. However, if we go back to last week's episode, there's a line from Danny where he says he would rather vote for Carson over a clone of himself. Did we just see Danny's clone? Or possibly, was it the clone that went home doing the terrible impression, and Danny's going to make it into the final 3? Let me know your thoughts.
Okay, Mike, did you happen
Ooh.
to see this clip anywhere?
Yeah, shout out to Big D, not Danny, from BB23 for flagging it online here.
Yeah, a lot of different people saw this in this past week's episode, and then the clip seemed like fairly like innocuous. I didn't really seem like that Jamie was saying anything that was like earth-shattering that they needed to go to this clip. But here, I think I could show you something. This is a moment from this past week at Tribal Council where we see that Jamie is talking, and here you see Danny's arm.
Supposedly.
Or was it Danny's clone? An attack of the clones, even for Carson.
Yes, Clanny.
Mm-hmm.
Not Franny.
Oh my God. Mike, what is going on here?
I mean, let's go with Occam's razor here. Danny found the duplicate yourself advantage, which allows you to not only duplicate a vote, but duplicate your entire self. Yes, Survivor has perfected cloning technology. Are we surprised? Why does Jeff Probst keep looking so young? It's because every season, prestige style, his version dies and a younger one takes his place, and the cycle perpetuates.
Oh my God.
Itself. That's why they call
Wow.
them cycles. He films 2 seasons, and then that version of him sheds its mortal coil and outsteps a Jeff Probst clone to take his place, and nobody is the wiser.
Yeah, so do you think that the Danny clone would vote for Carson if Danny was in the final 3 with Carson?
Yeah, so here's the problem. The Danny clone is not very smart. That he was able to pick up all of Danny's capabilities, but every time you clone yourself, your ability of intelligence is lessened by sort of like a half-life, right? Like a stick of radium. And I think at that point,
like a multiplicity scenario.
Exactly. And so at that point, Danny's just looking around, sees a guy with glasses and says, him, and probably just writes down middle one with glasses, like he's Jeff Probst on day 1 and he doesn't know Carson's name, and votes for him to win. And therefore is the curse, right? That's the thing about Survivor. You gotta balance. How many times do I step into the magical tree and clone myself, knowing that every time I do, I get a little bit dumber?
Okay. Mike, did you happen to catch what Danny was wearing on the jury bench?
Oh, you mean the rug that he cut a hole in at Ponderosa?
Yeah, what's going on there?
We've seen this a couple times, right? I feel like Ozzy wore this, I think, at a Micronesia Tribal Council.
Is it a collector's item?
I mean, this could be like a Ghost
Are you
Island
allowed
thing.
to just cut up the rugs at Ponderosa?
I mean, he's like,
or do the rugs all have holes in them?
Maybe they did Maria Von Trapp style. They fashioned them and they just had to leave them behind for the next crew to come around. It's like, okay, it's like the gypsy robe in the theater scene. Who's going to wear the Ponderosa rug this time around? And so maybe we'll see Jamie walk in, like, doing her best look with the Ponderosa rug.
Yeah, but it's not like that everybody is wearing it on different like it's not even like the Ponderosa in Survivor Micronesia is like a completely different part of the world.
Well, here's the thing. I do have some intel that this was Danny clone about 17 by the time he was getting voted out. And so he was, I would say a few bars short of a birdcage. And so they were able to convince him on the jury, like, no, you should wear this rug. It's a tradition now. And this poor clone, none the wiser, sat there on the jury, giddy like a schoolgirl, wearing a bathroom rug with his head sticking through it.
Yeah, do the tattoos all go to the right clones? Because do they need like the Danny with all the tattoos to sit behind Jamie in that one part, and then this clone had to be covered up?
Wait, could this be like a picture of Dorian Gray thing, where maybe the true Danny Massa is inside the tree, and all these clones keep coming out, and we see the ink slowly fading of them to indicate, like, no, they keep worsening with every spot that comes out, while Danny himself, Danny Prime, remains in his prime.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the question is, could this be the first ever, like, 42 to 7 to 1 vote? Because all of Danny's clones compiling in.
And who would they all vote for?
Would they vote as a pack, or do you think they'll split their votes because they're all so stupid?
I don't know.
This would be like that Pagong tribal council where Jeff yelled at them for voting for him. Like, I'm sure a few would vote his way.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully we get that all straightened out. And that it was this Carson, his 3D printing has gone too far.
Yeah, I think Carson ends up becoming the Dr. Frankenstein here, right? He says, okay, I came up with the ultimate 3D printer. And Danny's like, looks pretty good.
You gonna 3D print me? You 3D print me?
I have nipples. Can you 3D print me?
Yeah.
You print it to me? You print it to me? I don't see anybody else here.
You gonna copy me? You gonna copy me? You gonna print me?
I think Danny would want a captive audience, right? Of like, who better to practice my impressions of than myself? And that's how he's able to, like, we consistently see him doing tumbles. We see him swirling around, being able to find every advantage he can. He had so much ground to cover because there were so many different versions of him.
Yeah, and he's got, with reckless abandon because he doesn't worry about what happens to him because there's another clone on the way.
Now, there was one Kane who wandered in there who decided confusingly to call himself Matt. And that's why that one time when we saw Kane talk, it said Matt underneath. That was his clone name.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right. All right, let's take a serious question.
Okay. Aside from the dumb cloning tree theory that we came up with.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk to Victoria from Baltimore. Okay. Got an interesting question.
Oh.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Mike. It's Victoria from Baltimore. Loved meeting you guys in DC last season, by the way.
Yeah.
What do you guys think is the most impressive strategic move of this season? It could be somebody that's been voted out or somebody that's still in the game. How do you think it compares to other seasons of the new era? Love to know what you guys think. Thanks.
Okay, Mike, as we're starting to put Survivor 44 into the rearview mirror, we have seen 12 weeks.
Please, no more car metaphors. We've had so many of them this season.
Survivor 44. Do you feel like you have like a top move or two that really advanced the game strategically?
I mean, I have to look at this middle game because, again, this is the story of the Tikas. Unfortunately, I have to look at like some of the best stuff the Tikas were doing. And I guess I would have to look at the Danny vote. I mean, I talked about this last week. I think the Danny vote is an incredible microcosm, to use a word once coined by a man who wore a rug similar to Danny's at Tribal Council, of the skill level that these three were able to possess. And almost like Ocean's 11 or Avenger style. I know Jam Jam talked about superpowers, like their ability to survive that very pivotal vote working together between Jam Jam winning immunity and also being so lovable that you have Heidi and Jamie being like, I don't want to vote out Jam Jam. Between Carson having the social swing to say like, oh, I'm in trouble. Hey, Ratus, we totally have a thing, right? Can you vote for Heidi right now? You don't want to vote for the Sokas. They're so lame. And then between Carolyn...
And that ended up looming large because then Heidi didn't want to vote with the Jamie and Lauren and vice versa after.
Yeah, and it's so interesting hearing Jamie talk in her exit press, right, about the intention behind the Franny vote and, like, them trying to like, split the Tikas apart and make sure they don't vote together again. That's what the Tikas were able to pull off in this vote, right? Making sure, okay, these two warring factions will never come together. You wonder, like, why do they keep saying that they have to survive the final 7 and then they'll win because there's still 6? But if they essentially make it a 3-2-1, that's very different than 3 versus 3.
Yeah, I also feel like that the Brandon vote, I think also is one that's kind of gotten forgotten about. But in the way that Carson and Jam Jam ended up voting incorrectly on purpose, where they basically were able to put their votes on Brandon, knowing that Danny was going to play the idol, so that they were able to get a second vote where they were able to then betray the Ratus twice in a row and basically only get, the flack for doing it once.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was much to me shades of, in my opinion, like the big vote of Survivor 35, which was the JP vote where Ben was a spy. And lo and behold, the exact same thing happens next week, right? Where it's like, okay, now I've gotten my recon. Now I can actually show my hand, vote alongside these people and get rid of somebody. And that was also a very similar dynamic, right? Of, okay, here are the healers. here's Ryan, Chrissy, and JP, and then you have the 4 in the middle. Let's break up these factions one at a time so that they're not going to work together. Of course, it ends up sort of turning on Ben almost immediately, as opposed to it doesn't for the Tikas. So I agree. I think that's also a great highlight for, again, someone like Heidi, who I do think is looked at in our final 3 here, of someone who, at least from the edit, was the one to really step up and say, okay, Danny, you're going to play your idol on Franny. We're going to throw the votes on to Brandon. And it did seem like Brandon was like one of the pivotal people of that RHAP group. May not have come across that way to us, but it did seem like he was a fairly large threat. He had one individual immunity the previous round. And so I do think it makes sense for her to take the shot. So I do think that was probably the most pivotal vote of the season. If I had a vote that to me summed up the overall narrative of the season, I think I'd still go back to that Danny vote, which really was this idea of like the Tika trio being this formidable force working against all odds and misting everyone along the way.
And then let me give you another one that I think we probably haven't talked about in a minute, is the first vote of the season, where we ended up seeing where Brandon played his idol and ultimately got Maddie out of the game. But it was Matthew who played his shot in the dark in a way that we had never seen before, where he was able to make his vote disappear. And I think that that's something that's going to be very interesting, that we see future players maybe attempt to do more.
Yeah, what's interesting is you and I will get into this a lot more come the fall, but the people who went to play Survivor 35, I believe they saw pretty much through the pre-merge of Survivor 44. So I would imagine that looms fairly large, with the entire tone of that first tribal council essentially being, you know what, F it. And when you boil it down, there were individual motives, right? Jamie being presented as this apparent target for screwing up the puzzle, and them also only having like 45 minutes on the beach. So her saying, let me guarantee that I'm safe. Then you have someone like Brandon wanting to do the same thing. Matthew now wanting to show his allegiance by making his vote disappear. Lauren knowing she was safe because she had Maddie and Brandon in her corner and deciding to bank her vote. And so I think if you look back on that, that's also a really nice representation of the other theme of the season, which was just malarkey. And I think kind of like the epic vibe of that first tribal council is also well representing the season.
And as we're talking about like moving forward into, the future seasons, I do think that even for people who saw only the first half of the season, I do think that they get like, oh, okay, well, the Carolins are going to be such a big influence on future players. I think that we're going to see more of these survivors like letting their freak flag fly.
What I do really find interesting is once we get enough of a sample size, I would love to talk with people who played on odd number seasons versus even number seasons. How advantageous is it for you to only see the pre-merge of a season versus the entire season?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about this with Owen, right? That he had wished he had seen all of 42 so that he could cop a little bit of what Marianne was doing, or at least bring that confidence into his final tribal council speech. I think that watching the pre-merge of a season would be more directly applicable to your season, because you're like, I just watched what could happen in a pre-merge where people get swapped around and fake idols and real idols. That helps you in the immediate future, but not in the long-term future, because you're left wondering like, what the hell happened? And I wonder if we get a similar situation next season where it winnows down to like a 3-person, maybe even a 2-person tribe making it to the merge. There's a chance they might not be able to do it again, because I don't know if they're walking in saying like, I think those Tikas are all set up to do just fine. They don't know the absolute damage that a small group can cut when they have a plurality of the votes. And so I do wonder how the people on 45 will approach the post-merge versus the people in 46.
Mm-hmm. Any other big strategic takeaways you think that people might have from season 44, Mike?
There's one that I think is very latent, that I think is interesting, that I wonder if people will play more, even if it's being a little dirty.
Okay.
Because we saw that everyone packed up all their stuff.
Okay, yes.
And headed off to the new camp, which I'm of a couple of opinions on, by the way. I am fine in general with, honestly, elements of Survivor being on the more predictable side. I know that fans like to say, like, well, they should never know if it's a final 3 or a final 2, or if, this people know what's happening ahead of time, then the game gets complacent. I don't know. I disagree. I think that comes down to a cast. And then we veer in the other direction and we get something where it's mergatory and then it's split the tribes in half and then it's just throwing every single thing every single round just to make things unpredictable feels like an undesirable outcome to begin with. That being said, I don't necessarily like predictable things if they feel needless. And this is what that final 5 camp move feels like, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't love it. We have a question from one of our listeners that Rusty had called in to ask us, do you think the contestants broke the final 5 twist of sending them to a new island? I have to say, I don't feel like that. Jeff did not seem bummed out when I went back. He almost seemed like, so you like I almost felt
you've
like
answered the riddle.
Yes, like, oh, see, this is a thing in the new era that we do this. You're very right. That's very astute of you.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that's his general mentality, is the exact opposite of what we'd assume he'd react to when he finds out, oh, people study my puzzles and are able to ace them almost immediately and solve them in 5 seconds. Oh, these people knew they were moving to another camp, and so they brought all their stuff. He loves that. He loves the people that do their homework. So I think he's going to encourage it more.
I almost feel like that Jeff is kind of like a professional wrestler that like feels like, oh, this is over, like in a good way of like, oh, they like when I put my microphone out and the audience knows my catchphrases of like, you know, he loves it like when it's like the sanctuary where what Mike? What happened?
Good things happen.
That's right. Like I think he like oh, it's a thing now. It's a thing.
Right.
So
maybe we don't need Steve singing the Blues Clues song about Carson losing in fire. I think Jeff could take care of that himself.
Yeah. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like that the more he likes, it used to be where it's like drop your expectations because you never know what we're gonna do. Now it's like I love it when you like can sing along with the lyrics.
Right, because does that not speak to the sort of romantic transactional relationship, right? Of like, oh, honey, you knew what flowers to get me. You knew my favorite music without me even telling you. Oh, honey, you predicted that I'd send you to a new beach at the final 5. It means you care. I won't tell you that I love you back, but it means that you care.
Yeah, especially when it's like a thing of the new era where or somebody, I got a tweet the other day. It was like, please stop saying era. It's era.
Era Reichenbach?
Yeah. But especially like when it is a new thing that the contestants have sort of figured out that it's happening, I do think that he seems to especially like that.
Right, because I think it means to him, okay, you love the show so much. You've been observing. This is great. So all that being said, I love this little moment when the jerk style, everyone is dragging everything into tribal council. Lauren holds up this bag of rice and they say, okay, you hold on to the bag of rice because you're the only one guaranteed safe. How much room do you think someone could have to, if they feel they're in danger, hold the rice hostage? As Jam said, it's better than a hidden immunity idol.
Well, why would that person be in possession of the tribe's rice? Is this basically like a Brandon Hans situation where they're like, all right, if I get voted out tonight, I'm dumping the rice out in the fire?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I brought the rice with me tonight, everybody, just so you know.
Yeah,
I brought the rice. I'm going to dump it.
Yeah, I think you take the rice hostage. Do you not?
Yeah, I brought that. You all didn't know this. I brought my bag tonight. I brought the tribe's rice, okay? And if I leave, it's coming with me. It's your Jerry Maguire at that point.
Yeah,
it's like,
here's a rice with a picture of today's tree mail to show that I'm being serious.
This rice right here is coming with me.
Yeah, I think it's a fun idea. I know that we say don't negotiate with terrorists, but if you're desperate enough in a situation in Survivor, not to delve too far into the international stuff, we have seen this happen not once, but twice on South African Survivor, where someone won an additional portion of rice for the tribe, either like as a reward or at an auction. And when they felt they were in danger, they commandeered the rice saying, this is mine. And if I get voted out, I'm taking it with me.
Interesting. Did that work?
No, neither time.
Didn't they, when they gave up instead of the challenge, didn't they get Rice that Jeff said, okay, maybe it'll last 3 or 4 days? Wasn't that like 8 or 9 days ago?
Yeah, I believe at that point, right? This was Kane's vote out, so it's been 8 days. It's been a week, 6 days since Kane was voted out between when Jamie was.
Maybe they're really rationing that rice. But I know when they went to the reward, Jam Jam said he wanted to make 4,000 portions of rice.
Yeah, for all of Danny's clones. That's
so.
No wonder we're starving, Jeff. We have 5,000 mouths to feed at this point. There's too many clones coming out of the trees. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. That would make it even worse. Is like, we've stretched this out, and someone's like, And I think you could be sneaky about it if you want to. Now, listen, are there rules against it? I'm not exactly sure. I think you could airbud this thing. I think you could take the rice supply and genuinely say, like, I mean, we've seen people in the past do it with the flint. No, what makes the rice so different?
Well, Lauren had immunity, so I think that it was acceptable to the group. I do wonder if it was maybe like a red line of like, okay, well, like you could do that, but like you just know we will not vote for you in the end.
Well, here's a question. Should Lauren, because again, the rice is as good as an idol, have given the rice to Jamie?
If you vote out Jamie tonight, then she's going to dump the rice?
Yeah, because I think is it Three Amigos style of like, well, you can't vote for me because I'm safe. If you vote out Jamie, bye-bye rice for the next 3 days.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if it would work, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are so starving that I think it could legitimately put into question for them. How often are they faced with the choice of like, do I go for food or do I go for a guarantee of safety? I think there's a sizable chance they'd be like, all right, well, sorry, Heidi, you don't have the rice, so I think we're going to have to keep Jamie here.
Okay. Mike, speaking of Jamie, let me play a question for you that is from Ben that has to do about Jamie and her idol. Okay.
Hey, Rob and Mike, this is Ben calling with a ridiculous, crazy pitch for future players.
The best
Jamie
kind.
said that thinking she had a real idol caused her to play the game with more confidence throughout the season. So I'm wondering if future players should just come into the season and then every day gaslight themselves into thinking they have an idol, even though they don't. Just keep convincing yourself and lying to yourself. And if enough of that could cause you to sort of imagine like you have an idol and start playing the game with the confidence as if you have an idol.
Okay.
What do you think? Could that actually work? Would love to hear you talk about it. Thanks.
Could that work, Mike? Could you first of all, I don't know, can you gaslight yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you could do like 26 first dates, right? Like give yourself memory loss. So by the time you wake up every morning, you're like, oh, where the hell am I? I guess
it's not a lie if you believe it.
Exactly. And Jamie was very much about this power of manifestation. She was gaslighting in a different way than Jam Jam did.
Yeah. Do you think that this was ultimately a good thing for you? Was this a gift that Matthew gave her?
I think it's a blessing and a curse. It was a curse immediately, right? Because then everyone was saying, Jamie has an idol. We have to get rid of her. And so but the interesting thing is that for some reason, despite the fact that they thought Jamie had an idol, Lauren becomes the bigger target because she had an extra vote. The math ain't math in there.
It was that, okay, well, we can't vote for Jamie. What if she plays her idol? It's too dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the whole implicit immunity, right? And like putting the immunity necklace around your neck of, oh, well, if they're showing it, that means they're going to play it. So my vote will be wasted. So I guess I have to throw it onto somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, it was not unlike Dumbo's feather that with the fake immunity idol that Jamie believed that she could fly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she was able to eventually take off and summarily sink to the ground because it turns out that no, she can't fly. At the end of the day, she was given a fake feather that was then attached to an immunity idol.
Also, the person that gave her the feather, we found out, could not fly either.
Right. He walked out with the feather and said, oh, man, I wish I could take flight. Oh, wait, this thing is fake? Oh, okay. Well, good. Good thing Dumbo didn't try to take off with it. It'd be real embarrassing.
But had he been able to take flight, he would not have had to leave the game.
I really like this idea. Could we come up with like the Costanza advantage of like, here is an idol. You don't know if it's real or fake. Yes, Josh and I on the same page. You don't know if it's real or fake until you turn it into Jeff.
I mean, I think that's kind of what they were going for this season. But I wonder. Okay, so let's just talk this through. Okay, so basically, you go to Shipwheel Island. Okay,
Yep.
and one of these idols is real. One of these idols is fake. Choose one, and it's basically a little bit of like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Wait, no, we're just talking about the 50-50 coin, are we not?
I guess so, but you also you get to hold it like an idol.
Yeah.
And so you could give it to somebody. I think that actually having it be an idol, I think is more interesting than the coin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that having a trinket, because the idols have more associations with them. We've certainly seen idols in the past be like pendants, but yeah,
Yes.
with no
But
offense
one is really garish, and the other one it looks really chintzy.
Oh yeah, so this could be the Last Crusade, right? Of which one do you pick? Who would the Survivor producers think? And now we're getting to Princess Bride territory of well, surely you would go with the less.
I think
the less ornate one, so then you would choose this one. But then you think that I would think that, so here's actually the very garishly decorated one.
Or what if you have to go with another person? And Survivor, you get you and the other person, you both get one, but one of them is real and the other one is fake.
Oh, I love that.
We would have to we would have to know which is which. The Survivor producers can't just give it to whoever they like.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, listen, if people are throwing out theories of production interference, this would be the absolute Dumbo feather in the cap of they just chose that Carolyn would be safe tonight. I mean, that's the thing though. It's a big if. How confused were people about whether Carolyn had the real or fake idol up until she played the real idol last week?
Nobody was confused. Two people on Twitter were confused.
Well, they were loud about it.
They were loud. It's oh, well, why can't you that? Why is this not being talked about? Because there's no evidence of what you're saying.
It's a conspiracy theory. Why is nobody talking about the aliens in Chuck E. Cheese?
No, and Carolyn was getting annoyed. It's why are you assuming that I'm dumb enough to not know the difference between what was the real idol and what was the fake idol?
Now, that being said, I did wish we were going to get that Jeff Probst, Zach Morris-esque timeout moment to be
easy, Mike.
Yeah, well, maybe not. Exactly. Maybe too much of shared territory there to be okay, freeze frame, everybody. You're probably a little confused. Let's talk about the triangle trade that is this entire real idol, fake idol thing, because it's in... this is another thing that, again, I will say is fun on paper, did not work for me in execution. I think it was cruel for the contestants to be given such ornately decorated idols without any remote possibility that they would know there's a fake. And then on top of that, it was confusing to people.
That was a misfire. Yeah.
I had to cut together an edited series of montages to be this is what this means and this is what this means. That's a good representation of how overtly complicated the game of Survivor can be.
But you know who had a bad season? The fake idols. They were all duds.
Is that a bad season for the fake idols, though?
It was a good season for us, but the fake idols, I feel did anybody have a worse season than the fake idols? I mean, think about it.
I mean, probably
you had
Bruce.
I know. I mean, depends on who you ask.
One season, I'll say.
Some people would say he has
that lobster that got Carolyn vivisecting it and grabbing its parts.
No, the fake. So that the Tika fake idol got taken out with Sarah.
Yep.
The Soka fake idol went out in Matt's bag. He didn't even get to play it.
Do you think there was a ceremony by the way, after Matt got voted out where they burned his fake idol or something in memory of him?
I think that from what I understand that his bag just disappeared and they never got to see it ever again. And then Brandon's fake idol kept coming back like a bad penny. They kept hiding it and then it was Brandon's fake idol again. And then the Jamie's fake idol got voted out with Kane. The fake idols was just dud after dud after dud. I adore
this.
Yeah. That is there something about fake idols that they're just all losers?
I mean, yeah, they don't have the winning qualities to be able to work as a real idol, but I adore it because I want as little game interference as possible. So yeah, I love Survivor Go Wrong when no idol gets used. I love all these times that all these idols are found and never used or voted off with people in people's pockets, just because that means, okay, maybe this isn't as Mario Party as we think that it is. There's this idea in business of assets versus capital. And
Okay.
that's, an interesting argument for like the DK Chillins of the world, and like what I'm thinking might happen with Heidi here, of how capital, essentially you calculate it with assets minus liabilities. So assets are
Wow.
things that obviously you accrue monetarily
Business
speaking.
bloom.
Listen, kids, you can get a fairly useless economics degree 12 years ago from a university and be able to finally put it to use all these years later. You can
Is
be
that what
just
your
like me.
degree is in?
Theater and economics, yes.
Wow.
So essentially, you are able to accrue a lot of assets in the game of Survivor, right? They can be immunity wins, they can be idols, they can be advantages, but that doesn't automatically mean you have the capital, aka, in my opinion, the win equity, right? The skin in the game that I think we amount to in Survivor. Because if you have a big pile of liabilities, let's say, for example, you don't have a great social game, you're left out of the vote, you make several faux pas with the idols and advantages that you use, that ultimately calculates out to a negative number. And I think it's a perfect representation of how you, like, just because you have the most things does not mean you have the most worth in the game, if that makes sense. Like, just because you're able to boast all the trinkets and baubles that you have, if you're not able to utilize them and capitalize them in a way to actually get you further in the game to give yourself credit for, then I think that it doesn't really amount to much if it causes more liabilities than assets.
Okay. Mike, we've celebrated the Tika 3 a lot of this season, and rightly so. And I think that they are certainly one of Survivor's most iconic trios. Would you say, are they Survivor's most iconic trio?
I mean, listen, let's do a little mini ooh here, shall we? I'll play out list. You listed a few other notable trios previously, right? You mentioned the big three, Lex, Tom, and Ethan in Africa and All Stars. You listed the Ogacore 3 of Tina, Colby, and Keith. Let's see.
Which was probably, in hindsight, more of a duo, and then plus Keith.
Yeah, the Ann Peggy of it all. That's the thing about this trio. There is no Ann Peggy. And that's why, like, God, I desperately wish this season was a final 2. Because I would have been so intrigued to see, let's say they get rid of Heidi at 4, and it's a final 2. Who would take whom in that case? Because we have this thing where Carolyn said at the beginning of the merge, I trust Jam 94%, but I trust Carson 99.9%. Carson says Jam is his number 1. Jam is debating between getting rid of, he thinks that Carolyn's a bigger threat than Carson. Like, if that scenario were able to occur, I would adore to see who would take whom to the end. But I think as of late, we really haven't gotten that many big Survivor trios, certainly from a character perspective, bar none. It is them. And I cannot state enough that we need to savor and bottle this feeling and put it on a shelf for a celebratory occasion, then pop the cork, because we almost never see the big characters of Survivor make it to the end, even in this new era. I was talking about this a bit as to, like, okay, why are we in this stretch where the big players / characters go home at 8, 7, 6? And that's just like the product of the game, of the people are sticking out due to their personalities, their game styles, and they get cold there. This is the rare exception to the rule where I think, like, these people with these vibrant personalities also happen to be the people that are on top, dictating the orders. And it's a really fantastic correlation. So, like, I'd be hard pressed to not put them up there at this point.
I think they might be the best. Lex, Big Tom, and Ethan, I think, are iconic. Andrew in the chat mentions the 3 amigos.
I mean, listen, certainly good looking.
But they had a fun night, for sure.
They would win, like, the bathing suit contest portion of this contest.
Josh also says Amanda, Parvati, Sari. I feel like that was more of like a 2 and then plus Sari.
Yeah, but I feel like there actually was a pivotal scene in the pre-merge of Micronesia where Sari's talking with Amanda and Parvati and is like, okay, let's work together here. Could you say, like, Coach, Sophie, and Albert? Now, that's one of the rare trios to actually get to the game together at the end. Same with Sabrina, Kim, and Chelsea.
Yeah, but as a group, like, I feel like that those personalities do not match the Tika 3. Now, Mike, we're comparing them to the Survivors, but I'm wondering if we should be looking beyond Survivor, because they are just so iconic. So I did ask Todd Courtney, Amanda, another one.
You asked them? What did you ask them?
No, I did not ask them.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. No, I asked Chat GPT.
Of course. Okay. Chat GP Todd.
Chat GP Todd. Okay. China's great Todd. Okay.
China's great PG Todd.
Yeah. Okay. So we asked Chat GPT to give me some more great trios. And then I thought that we can compare and contrast these other great iconic trios versus the Tika 3 and see which is better. Okay.
Oh, okay. So like, are we comparing to like Neapolitan ice cream? Oh, and then can we do
well, that would be a chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
Well, Jam Jam we know who loves chocolate more, Carolyn or Jam Jam?
I think Carolyn does.
I think Carolyn's got to be the chocolate. I think Carson, no offense, has to be the vanilla.
Vanilla, yeah.
And Jam Jam's the strawberry.
I can see that. I could certainly see that. Okay. All right. So, Mike, let's talk about another iconic trio. The big three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, known as the Big Three. These companies have significantly shaped the automobile industry and influenced the economic history of the 20th century. Did you study them in college, Mike? The big three automakers?
I can't say it was nowhere near Michigan, so no. What do you think needed a bigger bailout? The auto companies in 2009 or Carolyn playing her idol on Carson last week?
Yeah. That was very helpful. I don't know. Mike, who is the greater trio?
Now, I guess we rely more. I'm not driving Carson to work every morning, so I guess they're more reliable on the day-to-day, but I feel like the Tika 3 are much more exotic to me. They're the Lamborghini. They're the Jaguar. They're the hot rod that's pulling off. And, I'm driving with the windows down. I'm not going for like the old, reliable, stable station wagon.
Yeah, these three are nothing like the big three automakers. They are not like the tried and true, reliable, like old standard General Motors, Ford, Chrysler. So, like, I feel like that they're the new hotness, the Tika 3.
Yeah, I mean, Carson is Team Tesla, right? He said he was going to buy 20 Teslas with his money.
Yeah. All right. More iconic than
Which,
the big
by the way,
three
Carson, I
automakers.
hope you didn't mention at the final tribal council. That's probably a point not in your favor.
All right. Mike, let's compare the Tika 3, better or worse than the Three Musketeers, Athos, Porthos, Aramis, the main characters in Alexander Dumas' novel. These three are one of literature's most iconic trios, embodying the values of loyalty and friendship. Now, so they have that in common.
Yes, Carson said he wants to keep Carolyn because he loves loyalty. Now, wait, so D'Artagnan, he was not part of the OGs? Was he sort of the hanger-on? He's the Heidi in this case?
I guess so.
Wow.
+1.
If you did a Steve Harvey Family Feud of, like, name the Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan would probably be #1, right?
Might be 4 answers on the board. Leave that to Judge Steve Harvey.
Or, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something
Now,
salacious.
So I am not a literary expert. I leave that to my fellow know-it-all, Stephen Fishback. But I do know about the Three Musketeers candy bar, which is trash.
Now, don't call it that, Rob, before you set it into the fire against it. It's not going to vote for you in the end.
And do not burp in my nose after you eat a Three Musketeers, because I do not want to smell your nougat.
If I get a whiff of nougat, I am taking this rice with me. So swear to God.
Yes, I swear to God. But I do feel like that the Tika 3, they do embody the values of loyalty and friendship.
Yeah, and I think that while they may not have weaponry to bring with them, I think that's more of a Kane thing, perhaps. They do have their own specific weapons that they use. They're almost more Ninja Turtles than there are Three Musketeers.
Okay, well, who would be who?
Okay, so I think that...
Carson is Donatello.
Yeah, Carson's definitely Donatello. Oh, is Jam Jam or Carolyn Michelangelo?
No, Carolyn's Michelangelo.
But Jam Jam's like the life of the party. I feel like he's more of a party dude than Carolyn is.
Well, what would Carolyn be? I don't think there's,
Carolyn is Raphael, right? Isn't Raphael like the kind of like the loner one, right? A little bit the oddball, the one who sticks out more.
I don't know. Like he's cool but rude. I wouldn't say that Carolyn is rude.
Yeah, but I guess the other one you're left with, right, is the leader, is Leonardo, and I don't know. Like, I feel like Carson can be like both a Leonardo and a Donatello mix.
Yeah, I don't think they really map to Ninja Turtles.
Is Jeff Probst more of a Splinter or a Shredder?
He's more of a Splinter, I think.
I think
actually Danny might be more of a Splinter.
Yeah, no, because I think Jeff Probst trying to like offer these wise sage words does feel very Splinter to me. I think early day Jeff Probst, the dig woman Jeff Probst, is more of a shredder.
For sure. Because Shredder used to burrow into the earth with his I think that's where his hangout was.
Yeah, and isn't that where the masseuses came from? The Foot Clan?
Okay.
Lauren and Jamie are Bebop and Rocksteady. It all makes sense now.
All makes sense. Okay. All right. That are the Tika 3 more iconic than after Carson's own heart, the Apollo 11 crew, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. This trio represents a monumental achievement in human history, the first successful manned mission to the moon.
See, this is tough because we don't have the results where we can say, okay, well, Neil Armstrong was the first person on the moon, and so therefore this person is going to be like, I'll be honest.
This is one small step for Jam.
I'm just
one giant leap for Jam kind.
Could you just imagine though, Carolyn, you're like, all right, I'm getting out. Oh God. Oh no.
Yeah. Hold on. I think I left my tooth on the moon. Can somebody go back and get it for me?
I would imagine Carolyn would be the one to be like, we got all these moon rocks. We got to bring them on board.
Like, I found this husk on the moon. I'm gonna put this on my head. Yeah.
I mean, listen, yeah, with no offense to our great astronauts, shout out to you, Dan Barry. I think it's got to go to the Tika 3, in my opinion.
Tika 3, but more iconic than the Apollo 11 crew, for sure. Okay. All right. Then we have the founding fathers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. These three figures are central to the creation and establishment of the United States, making them one of the most influential trios in American history.
Now, if my name was Haley Ford, you know which way I would be going. I would be hard-pressed. I mean, look, the Tika 3 are not on money yet. I think if Jeff Probst were to bring back his Survivor Outpost idea with Rick Devens and
Rick Devens is out, by the way, now.
I know, he's the old hotness, unfortunately. Still hotness, but still old hotness nonetheless. If they printed money, they could use, like, you know, the Australian Canadian-esque purple tinted dollars that would have the Tika 3 on there.
Yeah. That would be very exciting. I guess the founding fathers did you know, write the Constitution and did start America, but you know America's you know.
Did the founding fathers ever create great TV? I guess they did create Hamilton, so I guess that's sort of a draw, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they have more detractors than the Tika 3 does.
Yeah, but they also have more loyalists, I think. I think a lot of people maybe in the future will be like, well, the Tika 3 did this, and 200 years later, we still need to keep doing it.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. This week, I feel like Tika 3 is having a better week.
Definitely having a better week, I would say. Now I want to see them in powdered wigs. And I think that's what's really going to be the big comparison, in my opinion. Now, the question is, who's who here?
Well, I think it really is going to come down to who is going to win. I think that Carson is Ben Franklin.
Carson is Ben Franklin because he's the... No, I think Jam Jam is Ben Franklin.
Yeah, that's why.
Poor Richard's Almanac, he always has a proverb, right? Some sort of witticism. That
he has glasses also. Yeah.
He has, I mean, 2/3 of them have glasses.
Why? Who else has glasses? Washington or Jefferson?
I mean, Carson has glasses as well, so he could be.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I feel like that. Does Jam Jam have bifocals?
I would certainly, if he could start the fire. Wasn't that the whole thing with the Owl Man? Was that he had bifocals and that's how he started the fire in Survivor Fiji?
Yes. I guess whoever wins.
Or no, I think that was
for-
BB
Yeah.
actually. I would say I think Carson. So Carson is Washington, but Carson is specifically the young George Washington who chopped down the cherry tree. That's been Carson's entire MO this season.
Yes.
Right. He burned down the cherry tree.
Can Carolyn tell a lie though?
I think that she could. She told a
Mhm.
lie about her having an idol for the vast majority of the season.
Okay, I guess so. I guess it's not so easy. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. All right, and then one other trio from ChatGPT. The Golden Trio: Harry Potter, Hermione, Ron Weasley. From the Harry Potter series, these three friends are central characters in one of the most popular and influential book series of the 21st century. Okay, we know Carson.
In what depraved corner of the internet are they referred to as the Golden Trio?
That's not what they're called.
No, nobody's like, and then the Golden Trio walked up. Nobody's going to conventions saying, well, yes, we have to work on our Golden Trio costumes.
Let me see. Let me Google Golden Trio. No, Golden Trio. That comes up.
Listen, I've been like, I've never heard it ever referred to. Like, listen, I'm sorry. I guess I can't have a conversation with Tori Meehan because I have never, in my 33 years of existence, ever heard it called the
Golden Trio. Yes. So do you think that this Tika 3 should steal the Golden Trio?
I think they might as well. Nobody's really squatting on it at this point. Lord knows, I think the popularity of the Golden Trio is at an all-time low.
Mm-hmm. Even themselves, the characters are unpopular.
I mean, I think it's tough. We're always separating art from artists here. So I think that, I think it's tough to like invest in these characters. That being said, I mean, come on, low-hanging fruit. Carson is Harry Potter.
Is Jam Jam Ron Weasley?
No, Carolyn is Ron Weasley. Carolyn has like this big goofball energy, but is surprisingly smart, like great at chess, even though she was very confused by the chessboard in the voting booth. Like, has a lot of surprising skills that are underneath this, like, and also Ron Weasley is like the youngest or the second youngest of 7 kids, right? Like, he's oftentimes forgotten about. Hasn't that been Carolyn's storyline this entire time? Has been like, nobody believes in me.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Ron Weasley is Jam Jam is Hermione.
Jam Jam is Hermione. He can
trio.
Listen, he could be like, Hermione, listen, I'm gonna work on your hair a little bit, girl. Frankly, it needs some work.
All right, Mike, we have not yet talked at all about what comes after the votes are read. Okay, a lot of people want to hear us discuss about the Survivor after show and what might happen. Here's Karen with an eye.
Hi, Rob and Mike. This is Karen with an eye. Thank you both for making a really fun season of Survivor even more fun. So I love it when you do a draft in this penultimate episode, and you've done many of them, but I think my favorite is when you draft words that they'll say in the after show. So maybe you could do a draft for the after show nouveau era version. Really any draft would make me happy, but if I had to pick, I think the word one was very interesting.
Word draft.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, Mike, do you want to do a Survivor after show draft?
Absolutely, because look, this might be something that people, not necessarily looking forward to. This is the 4th time we're doing it. I'm glad that Jeff is entertaining this idea of sort of splitting the baby or perhaps cloning the baby by putting it in Danny's magical tree to say, okay, we'll do a live after show. And then maybe some sort of Back from the Outback-esque special of like, hey, what have you been up to these past 6 months, to sort of have our cake and eat it too. So I think it makes sense, especially given this eclectic cast, to talk about what is sure to be a very interesting follow-up.
Okay. So do you want to draft words or do you have a different idea?
We could draft words. You know what? Let's draft words. And then maybe in like the final round, we'll each draft something we think will happen. Like a moment, either a topic of discussion or like something someone will do in the after show.
Okay. All right. Are any words excluded?
I think let's take out anything from the Survivor lexicon, like idol, torch, Vote. I feel like those were
Yeah.
just easy layups.
Okay. Also, one of our listeners, Colby, says, what are the chances that we hear the word bird in this year's finale? I think it's pretty high considering the birdcage idols in the pre-merge.
See, it all comes back around. My word
Mhm.
was just marinating on Ghost Island for 5 years until it finally came back around
Finally,
to be
it's gonna be
appropriate.
a hot button word. Okay. All right, Mike, are you gonna go first?
Yes.
We'll go back and forth. No
All
snake
right.
draft.
All right, I'm going to go with a very generic word to start. Let me cast a wide net to bring in maybe another disgusting moment in Survivor history with Darnell's brown trout from the premiere of Co Wrong.
Oh my God.
I'm going to go with anything.
Anything.
The word anything.
Boy,
As in,
okay.
well, after playing Survivor, I now know I can do anything.
Okay. So that word is with the count word anything.
I mean, listen, it counts as a word, I think.
Okay. Should we try to make this like okay, Scrabble-esque, okay, of
Oh,
like
I
okay,
like
so
this.
so that in round 1 words count for, but they have to be like these are pretty like common words.
Yeah, these are like things you could say. We're talking like 2-3 syllables, but something you would hear like your mechanic saying on the sly.
Okay, all right. In round
While
1
they're
these are
listing off their favorite of the big 3 motor companies in their spare time.
sure. I'm tempted to say pizza. I feel like that's like too on the nose
I think
here.
that's too like a disqualifying.
Okay. How do we feel about era/era?
Okay, I think that's okay.
Okay. Era. Okay. All right. Now, Mike, this is in round 2.
Mm-hmm.
These are for double points.
Okay.
Okay.
I just hope the Calvin and this one's just double points.
Double points. Okay. We're looking for a phrase.
A phrase. Okay, so this is where anything could have come in handy here.
Mm-hmm.
I will say let's go with I feel like I've won.
I feel like I've won. Okay. I'm gonna go with full tilt boogie.
Oh, you think that old chestnut's gonna be dusted off for this one?
I think so.
Now, see, this is a disadvantage of not doing a live reunion show because in the time that will have passed, all of the very talented people out there will have created a full tilt boogie song and a la, Let Loose for Lucy LaDuca in RuPaul's Drag Race. They would have come up with a remix that Jeff would have gotten Sekou Bunch to play at the reunion of like, all right, now playing the new song, Full Tilt Boogie. It's the Survivor House Band.
Yeah, we really are missing the wand off for the full tilt boogie era for sure. All right, Mike, and then for round 3, can we get a past player shout out?
Oh God. Okay,
For
well,
3 points each.
I'm going to say Richard Hatch.
Oh, okay.
Because if I'm going with Jam Jam winning, he has talked multiple times, including with me, right, about how he saw Richard Hatch sitting in that tree, and that was what made him realize he could be on this show. He was hooked ever since. Now, he would also be the first LGBTQ plus winner since Todd, so would Carolyn. But I do think he would refer back to that as like, okay, he was this larger gay guy that was able to manipulate his opponents and win. I was able to do so as well. So that's me sort of like bringing in my own predictions for the finale as well.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to go with Marianne.
I mean, it was a little bit of a layup, yeah.
I feel like that bound to come off. Somebody's going to say Marianne.
I would imagine so, right? Especially because they had just seen her reunion, and so they could either say like, "Listen, it was no Marianne, but good try."
Okay, all right. So let's put our draft aside. Let's answer some hot button questions about the finale. Okay, Mike, this is finale adjacent, but a question that I have for you. All right, we know Sia is going to give Carolyn a lot of money. Okay?
Do you think CRC is like, move into my house? I'm going
Move into my
bankrupt for
house.
you.
Okay.
Take all my money.
All right. Does any other player get money from Sia?
Yes.
Now we saw in season 43 that Sia gave money to Jesse, to Owen, and to Ryan.
Now, were they equal amounts? I can't remember.
I do not recall. I want to say it was 100 to Jesse and maybe 50 to the other guys, but maybe the chat knows. Does anybody else besides Carolyn get money from Sia?
I definitely think so. I think Sia wants to spread the wealth around, the wealth that she may have. So I think Carolyn definitely getting money. In fact, I think Carolyn replacing Maddie Ziegler is going to be her new tour girl now. It's going to be Sia and Carolyn taking on the world. Now Sia is going to have not only her little face shade, but crab fingers as well, courtesy of Carolyn, her personal stylist. I think Lauren is a shoo-in for Sia.
Oh, you think so? I feel like that Lauren. What about Lauren? Do you think is appeals to Sia? Because I feel like that Lauren, I feel like is not necessarily the type of player that Sia typically rewards.
Well, I'm looking at the Ryan of it all. Someone who did not necessarily pop out, but had this incredible story about being born with cerebral palsy and like still working against the odds to make the life that he did. And Lauren has really latently brought about this idea of being a single mom and realizing that both she can do it all on her own, as well as realizing that she does need help and it's okay to ask for help. And so I would imagine that, I have to think at least one of these awards is going to be given to somebody who does have that story and makes it decently far. And I think it's going to go to Lauren.
I'm going to vote no. I think Sia does not give money to anybody else. I think
really?
It's all Carolyn for Sia.
You don't
and
think
maybe
even
maybe she gives her $1 million.
Do you think it could be like the fan favorite Big Brother award where she's like, okay, well, I can't vote for the winner. Otherwise, I would think that Jam might get a good chunk of change as well.
Well, I think that if we think Jam is going to win, but Mike, I think there's a non-zero chance Sia gives Carolyn $1 million.
Is that reflective of the season that everyone feels like they're secondary characters to the Tikas, that only one of them gets the Sia money, and it's the full amount of money that the winning of the season is?
I think so. I'm calling my shot on that.
And then by comparison, if it includes money from her making the finals, she would earn more money.
$500,000. Maybe $500,000.
Yeah, I think $500,000 would make sense. Listen, the woman is not made of money completely. The chandelier can only go so far.
Okay. All right. My question number 2, does Jeff ask Kane about playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Absolutely not. No. There are only so many limits this man would take. This would be the equivalent of like trying to bond with that other dad at a party of which you have nothing in common. Where Jeff's like, so Dungeons and Dragons. That's the thing. I hear. What did you think of this set, Kane? Aren't you glad Carson didn't burn it down?
Okay. I think he does.
What is he gonna ask?
Kane, so you love Dungeons and Dragons. What was it like to play?
Hey, Dweeb in the front. Question for you, nerd.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 3. All right. Under direct questioning from Jeff, does Matt call Franny his girlfriend?
Okay, so let's date this as they will later on. So this is, we're going to be on day 26. Franny was voted out on day 19. So they've spent about 7 days. Now, look, we've watched Love is Blind. Things can happen under shorter frames of time. But I feel like Matt is so preciously demure that I don't think he would be like, yeah, she's my girlfriend. Like, I think they would genuinely wait. They always say in romance, you never know the realms your partner can go to until you have Ethiopian food. And until they have that labna on the table, I don't think that they're going to be able to typify, name their relationship as of yet.
Okay. Oh boy, I know Jeff famously loves talking relationships.
He
at
loves
the-
love. So I actually had a thought about that because look, people take their licks at Jeff Probst.
Whoa.
And it was a little, well, yeah, maybe if he puts, chocolate in his hair, trying to abscond it from the reward. And people were asking, like, oh, that was Jeff. How dare you? Jamie says she loves you. And all you could follow up with is thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Do we not remember that this man has no idea what the concept of love is?
That's
Do we
true.
not remember all these inimitable family moments that Rob, you and I have podcasted about before, where
Yeah.
he has to actually say, like, what's it like to have a sister? Your grandfather. So your father had a father? Explain that to me. How on earth do you think this man has known love to the point where when someone says, I love you, he knows how to say, I love you back? He's still learning. That's level 5. The dude's still on level 2 at this point of basic human understanding.
Okay. I think that Matt and Franny, I think, no, we don't necessarily. Matt does not call Franny his girlfriend.
They're well studied enough. They know what happened with David Murphy. They don't want to pull a similar
They don't
thing.
wanna
They know
do
they're
that.
not like live. There's no Amber there to like awkwardly be there in the middle of the shot while all this is happening, knowing that the future is about to repeat itself in a much more gruesome way. But I think both of them are on the DL enough that they're like, yeah, we'll see. We've been having fun at Ponderosa, but let's upgrade from PS2 to PS5 if you catch my drift.
Whoa. Okay. Mike. Okay. Question number 4. Will Jeff reveal that Jamie's idol was indeed a fake idol?
This is a great question because we've been asking this of Kane. We've been asking this of Jamie. Kane told me in my interview with him, he found out, quote, much, much later that Jamie's idol was fake. Much, much later. Look, a lot can happen in Survivor in a day, especially in this new era. But that doesn't mean to me like 7 days later in game time.
That's true.
That seems to me he flew back. Hey, Matthew, how's the shoulder? Great. Oh, what? Oh, you ass. That's to me is like the time frame behind when they found out about the fake idol.
Okay. I'm going to say no also.
Yeah, I just feel like it also would be weird because I feel like with the new way they're doing this after show with jurors and finalists, we very rarely regard pre-merge contestants. I think maybe the exception I'm really remembering is like Survivor 41 when they were talking about Brad and JD. And that's just because they had such large roles to play. And Matthew really did as well, for what it's worth. I think he was a massive character who had ripples upon ripples of a pebble being dropped in the pond of this season. At the same time, I don't think they would want to make mention of something that happened like 2 months ago at this point.
Okay, my question number 5. Does Danny De Niro face anybody?
Could you imagine if Jess says, all right, we're about to go to commercial break. Danny, De Niro's on.
Face. De Niro, can you De Niro us into the break?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think at that point, do they actually show it then, or do they just cut to it for 1 second and then do the wide shot of everyone eating pizza?
Yeah, De Niro face.
I don't think so. Actually,
pizza?
Exactly. I don't think so. Actually, I think that Danny had his moment. I think he'd be much more excitable than his Robert De Niro impression would imply to like talk about other things. I also think Jeff doesn't want to go back to that moment. I think that can of worms got closed.
Yeah.
He knows he doesn't want to touch that stove again.
I'll just, to be contrarian, I'll say I think we get it. I think we get some De Niro face. Does Carson reveal he 3D printed the puzzles?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I think that we're going to get a segment about how excitable of a fan Carson is, where he is going to reveal that he 3D printed all the puzzles. I'd be intrigued to see the reactions from everybody, because either there'd be, oh, look at this impressive young kid really studying, or like, oh, hell no, how am I supposed to compete with that?
Yeah. I'll say he doesn't. I'll say he keeps it. Yeah,
keeps it
maybe. Yeah, maybe keeps it under his hat in case he's going to play again.
Yeah, but wait, what? Kissy's gonna play again?
Yeah, in case they don't use it in the show or anything like that.
But then everyone would know that he 3D printed the puzzles.
Yeah, that's why he's not going to say anything this time.
But then everyone would know in anticipation for the next season that he 3D printed the puzzles anyway, because they watched the season.
Well, that he doesn't know that they're going to show it yet.
I guess that's true. Though he did. I do wonder how many times he mentioned out on the island in confessional that he 3D printed the puzzles.
Okay. All right. Mike, you can write the 7th and final question, the tie-breaking question.
Oh, the tie-breaking question.
Assuming it's tied.
All right. How about this? What will be at the center of the logo for the upcoming Survivor 45? Closest to the general concept wins.
Okay. Now, I feel like that we've kind of been phoning it in with some of these logos. Like, I mean, if you look at the Survivor 44 logo, which if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see above us here. And it's really just like a tunnel. Like, it has nothing to do with the iconography of the season.
Yeah, it's an arch with the numbers 44 above it with 4 people standing around a fire pit.
Okay. So
just as a reminder of the previous 3, right? 41 had the infamous person who needed the Aqua team to come help him out, who was drowning in the surf, holding a torch aloft.
Yeah.
Season 42 was the aforementioned Maze and Lock and Key. Season 43, Sir Squiddington makes his grand appearance on the logo. So where are we going for 45?
How about a crab?
A crab.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I was thinking animal as well. So I think, because I think it feels like we're going back to the well of like, well, there's a lot of animals around here. I guess we could go back to crab. And I don't think we've ever had a crab front and center. Now, is it going to be like full,
A crab with a torch.
Could it be Carolyn holding the crab claw with the torch in it?
Yes. Crab with a torch.
That would be the twist of like, listen, today we're going to see who truly shall inherit the earth, man or animal. It's like that Fox series from back in the day where like the man raced the zebra.
Ocho Cinco?
Yeah. All right. So we have that. I'm going to say, you know what? Why not? Let me go back to the word of choice from Survivor David versus Goliath.
The word of choice.
Give me the bird, baby.
Okay.
Because I don't think we've had a bird. We've had the toucan on your beloved Survivor the Amazon logo, but I feel like since then we haven't had like a bird front and center, right?
Okay. So
I feel like that's the case. I don't know what the bird would be. What birds are native to Fiji?
I mean, you'd have to ask Omer. Okay.
Oh, so.
But I don't know, Mike. I'm digging this idea here. I asked our friends over at Dolly to give us look at this crab holding a Survivor torch. I mean, this could be a perfect tie-in for the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we need a 7th, 9th circle of hell crab from the Little Mermaid there with odd lips talking to us.
It's perfect. These are all good. So
I mean, good is obviously a very ubiquitous term here. I think my favorite is I like the details of 4, but it's a little uncanny valley. I'm gonna go with number 3. Number 3 looks jacked.
Yeah, number 3 does look jacked.
I'd swipe left on that crab.
That creeps me out. I think that number 2 I like the best. It's not as off-putting.
No, I want a crab that will like carry.
I think it has
me in its
eyelashes
arms.
like Carolyn also.
Oh, that's true. And now, did it come on with those tattooed on like Sarah Dawn Thomas? I don't know. I like number 3 because number 3, like, I feel protected with number 3. I feel like it could carry me
He's
home.
too much of a threat. Vote him. Brand steal the crabs.
Crab steal.
Yeah, crab steal.
The ultimate crab trap.
Who's the better alliance? The Tika 3 or the Crab 4?
Yeah, I think the Crab 4 might have it, considering they're more accustomed to the land. I don't know. Now I'm kind of rooting for Crab Daddy here to like take the game into his arms and carry me home.
All right. So there you go. Those are our crab versus bird logo. All right. There you go. Let's see. Did I have any other questions about the after show? You think the pizza is back?
Pizza's gotta be back. It's a staple. We also haven't had a pizza reward this season. No?
Save it for the end. Sure.
Yeah, I just did a quick Control F for pizza. Nary a finding in Wikipedia.
No pizza. Okay. This is a question from Isaac. He wants to know, if good things happen at the sanctuary, why are there so many flies?
Flies are good. They contribute naturally to the environment. They help break down substances that we would otherwise discard. But yeah, I do
Gross.
wonder, like, should there be a mosquito net up or something?
That'd be helpful.
Now, I guess the question is, are we looking at a natural elevation of rewards from 44? Because I know that Owen had complained, right, about not only the food that they were given, but also, like, back in my day, we didn't have no foot massage at the sanctuary. Do they only have to go up?
I don't think he was complaining about no foot massage at the sanctuary. He was saying that he wanted to go and take like a helicopter ride and, you know, go to another island. But that to be fair to Owen, he was not complaining he did not get his feet rubbed.
I read between the lines, Rob. I saw the edging in that conversation.
Yeah.
Everything's pointing to Owen wanting his Tootsie Wootsies rubbed down by people saying the sanctuary where good things happen.
Yeah. By the way, our colleague Jessica Leese had a great tweet the other day to say that basically whatever they were giving to the Fijian women to come in to perform the feet massages on the people who had been playing Survivor for 3 weeks, they were underpaid. She said whatever they paid the locals to massage the feet of the people who have been outdoors without a shower in 3 weeks, it was not enough.
I think we finally found it. You know what? This is the golden trio. They're beating Tika any day. These poor 3 women who had to massage the feet of these malnourished, dirty as hell, grungy Americans.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, I feel bad. I do feel like at least some production crew members have to be like, okay, I guess I have to step in and pretend to be a waiter at Outback Steakhouse. What was the pitch meeting of like, all right, you're going to need to go down there and give a foot rub. But here's the twist. They haven't showered in a month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a foot rub guy, full disclosure, but I kind of feel like that the like full body, like massage, like the deep tissue massage of like, okay, you have been sleeping on like bamboo for 3 weeks, like you could use this, like your tired muscles. But maybe, I don't know, maybe if there's no shower involved, maybe it was just like, all right, well, let's just put like, you put their feet in the bath first.
We need to talk about this. Is there no shower? Why has there not been a shower reward in the new era? Does the sanctuary not have a shower built into it?
26 days is tougher. No, I don't think there's a shower at the sanctuary. What are we doing, a porta potty there too?
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's just bring back the little bathroom that they used to have in the early seasons, right? Have a Karor build it all over again.
Yeah, my
good time, call Jeff Probst.
Yeah, Tonic in the chat says, I'm sure they rinsed their feet. I did look. They did seem pretty clean. They
didn't rinse it far enough, in my opinion. You have to remove an entire layer of epidermis.
They came in with like super soakers and hosed them down. I think.
Yeah, just I'm thinking like fire hoses, just blasting them in.
And power washer. Yeah.
I'm just imagining Tough as Nails like, all right, here's your next task. It's me, Phil Kogan. Dirty hands. They're going to be really dirty today. These Survivor players have been living for 26 days in grime and filth. You have to power wash their feet so they're sparkly clean. Jeff will approve of them when you've done a good job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and here today to help us judge, it's podiatrist Pete is here from season 3. You all remember him.
Sean Radin is back to judge this contest. He's an expert in the world of feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, the Golden Trio, they were there.
I'd rather give a hand massage than a foot massage. It feels like so many challenges are also based around hand stuff that like they feel more commodities.
Mike, you want like your hands to be like calloused going into these challenges. You don't want like soft moisturized hands before you do the immunity challenge.
Just imagine like they pick up the rope and it just slips out immediately.
Yeah, you need to have like your hands ready to go.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense that you want to like, you're already preparing for that final 4 fire making, right? As is everybody. And so you do want to have like the most tainted hands possible so that
Tainted Hands is one of the less celebrated Toughest Nails teams.
Yeah, so that like your hands don't slip from the flint because of the oil of Olay that was put upon your calluses 6 days ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mike, so some big news here this week because the cast of Survivor 44 was very excited that Carson had tweeted out how the cast of Survivor 44, this season of Survivor, was nominated for an award.
Yeah, I saw this as well. Is this a first for Survivor to be nominated for, I believe it was a Critics' Choice Award?
Yes. Okay. So this is the Hollywood Reporter ended up in an article this week. The due to the writers' strike, unfortunately, the Critics' Choice Association will forego an in-person ceremony and announce the winners in a special announcement on June 15th. However, the nominees for Best Competition Series are The Amazing Race.
Oh, always a favorite.
Lego Masters.
Mm-hmm.
RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. 2 nominations for RuPaul.
Took up 40% of the nominees.
Survivor and The Traitors.
Oh, which version of The Traitors? I'm assuming US?
Peacock. US.
We should also mention that this is the Critics' Choice Real TV Awards. I have no idea what the difference is, if that makes it more or less real, considering the fact that it has the word real in it.
Mm-hmm. And then the nominees for Best Ensemble Cast in an Unscripted Series. The nominees are Below Deck Sailing Yacht.
Okay, you could speak to that, Rob. Is it worthy
Yes.
of a nomination?
I feel like it's not the season that's on right now, but perhaps it is. I don't know. I have to ask the critics. Dancing with the Stars. RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. Okay. Special Forces, World's Toughest Test.
Throw it out. The legitimacy is done. Look at this clown show.
Fail.
Survivor
season 44 and Vanderpump Rules. Survivor 43 snubbed.
I mean, if Tom Sandoval does not take this award, there'll be a new Scandoval in town. I'd have to imagine, as great as Survivor 44 is, people were tuning in to, more of the screens on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. than it was for 8 p.m. this past week for a reason.
Yeah. Okay. So these are big 2 award shows, Mike.
Yeah, so the June 15th, but they're not doing anything? They're just saying, hey, you won?
I get, unless the writer's strike gets solved, they're just going to put out a tweet on the 15th.
All right, Zaslav, get on it. I want to see Jeff Probst get his Critics' Choice Real TV Award, which sounds like, by the way, it's a made-up title of yeah, it's the Real TV Award. It wouldn't be real if it had the word real in it.
Big Brother snubbed. Yeah. The nominees for Best Relationship Show. Farmer Wants a Wife.
Okay, there we go. Legitimacy earned back once again.
Indian matchmaking. Jewish matchmaking. Love is Blind. Married at First Sight. And The Parent Test.
What's The Parent Test?
I don't know.
Is that Date My Mom show from MTV?
Yeah, Jeff Probst snubbed for Best Show Host.
Oh, who's nominated for Best Host?
The nominees are Selena Gomez for Selena plus Chef.
Okay, that doesn't count. I'm calling BS.
Alex Guarnaschelli for Alex versus America.
These are reality shows. If the show has your name in it, it doesn't count in my opinion.
Padma Lakshmi for Top Chef.
Okay, that's legitimate.
Trixie Mattel for Trixie Motel on Discovery Plus.
They're just saying well, these people have their names in the show, therefore they're important enough to be nominated?
RuPaul's Drag Race, and Ryan Seacrest for American Idol. Scandalous ending, I heard, for American Idol.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Speaking of the Golden Trio.
Yeah, I mean, the wild thing is that people are this is unfortunate kindling for the fire of Jeff Probst eventually turning us into Jeff Probst Presents Survivor.
Yeah.
Right? If he's getting a signal of, if I have to get nominated for an award, I have to put my name in the title. We're just veering towards the DEFCON 1 outcome.
Okay. All right. And then the nominees for Critics' Choice Star of the Year are...
Or did Taylor Hale get snubbed for this one?
Yes.
Oh!
Yep. The nominees are for Star of the Year, Guy Fieri, Diners, Drive-Ins,
No,
and Dives.
stop it. Then we've already won. He's taking it. He's winning every single award.
Ina Garten for Barefoot Contessa.
Now, they're really big Food Network fans on this.
Selena
reality.
Gomez for Selena plus Chef. Padma Lakshmi for Top Chef.
Did they just leave on a cooking show at the Critics' Choice Awards headquarters?
Sandra Lee for Dr. Pimple Popper.
Nope. Okay. If we're talking about gross things, I would rather have Jam Jam burp in my mouth 5 times in a row than watch an episode of Dr. Pimple Popper.
Eugene Levy for The Reluctant Traveler with Eugene Levy.
What is that? That's a Mad Lib of a show.
Peyton Manning for History's Greatest of All Time with Peyton Manning College Bowl.
Wait, when did this? What? This is unreal. This is.
And of course, RuPaul for RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars.
Of course, they tapped into RuPaul's nominees like they were oil that he was
RuPaul
Rocky
cleaned up. RuPaul led with 5 total nominations.
Wow, RuPaul being the Titanic of the Critics' Choice Real TV Awards.
Mm-hmm.
So is this for reality TV? Is that what it means, real TV?
Yes.
There are previous nominations for this?
Also, RuPaul gets a nomination for Best Game Show for Lingo.
All right. Well, now I'm looking back at last year to see if I believe Survivor got shut out last year.
Well, Survivor 44 got them back on the map.
I suppose so. This is really the thing to bring people back into the fold. Wow. Actually, the Real TV Awards are able to do what Ghost Island couldn't. Last year, Best Competition Series, a tie between Top Chef and, you guessed it, RuPaul's Drag Race.
They love RuPaul's Drag Race at these awards.
RuPaul's Drag Race and the conglomerate of the Food Network. Those are going to be the big winners every time.
Yeah. So congratulations to the cast of Survivor 44. We will all be waiting with bated breath on the 15th to see who gets to keep the award.
On chocolatey burped breath. Who's going to accept the award if they win?
Carolyn. Carolyn's going to make the acceptance video.
Do you think they'll let them?
I think that they'll just make acceptance speeches. I don't think that they'll there's not going to be a ceremony.
Do you think if the cast wins, do they like each get it for an 18-day rotation of like, okay, Maddie, you better send this over to Helen. Next up, she gets it for the next week and a half.
Yeah, but then they send it to Matthew's house and he sends Jamie the fake award.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, well, it turns out that actually he had the fake award this entire time. And you were gloating so much about how you had this real TV award in your apartment, but it's a fake real TV award.
Yep. So be on the lookout for that. Congratulations to Survivor 44. Sam Moore flagged this right before the podcast.
Oh, lovely.
It's a tweet from our friend Omer Zahir, who said, "I'm calling you out."
No,
Michael Scott Bloom.
Don't do this one. No.
Yes. No. You want to use your veto?
I say a veto. This I don't know how to answer. That's the problem. Okay, but talk it out. We can do my jam brain versus heart here.
Well, let me put the tweet up on the screen then. Okay.
Boy.
All right. So this is from Omer. And Omer is he's calling you out. Okay. He says to Michael Scott Bloom.
I told him my middle name this one time, and then he forgot it, so I'm never telling him my middle name again.
Yes. Who is your real work wife at Liana RHAP or Shannon? I don't know who this person is.
That's the answer. That's my work wife.
This is not the Twitter handle of Shannon Gus or Gates. This is a random woman. She's at Shannon on Twitter. She has a private Twitter. She has 158. She's about 158 people. She has 1,000 followers. I didn't. Ain't sister wives.
I didn't want it to come out this way. Omer has found my secret shame. I do have a work wife at Shannon. She doesn't know a lot about Survivor. She's underground. She's the one that perfected the Danny cloning tree. But I decided that she is truly the one, my number one.
Yeah, she got on Twitter in 2006.
Wow, she was in. But aren't they going to purge all the people who haven't tweeted anything in a decade?
Well, she might have tweeted, but her tweets are protected.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to ping
Your
my own
wife.
work wife.
Ask your work
Hop
wife.
on Slack.
Yeah. Okay. Why is Omar being like this?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what madness this man is bringing into my life. Oh, so lovingly, but still bringing it into my life. I have so much love in my heart for everybody. What I say is, why can't we make it a final 3? You know, if
Mhm.
Survivor can, why can't I at this point? I wouldn't know what to choose. I'm between my brain and my heart and my gut and every other part of my body at this point. I wouldn't be able to make a decision here.
Yeah.
And if I win, I lose. And if I lose, I win.
Yeah, many of us are polyamorous around here.
Exactly. Listen, I feel like that's the only way you can play nowadays. The era
Mhm.
of, monogamous podcast companionship is over, much like the
Yes.
era of alliances. You have
Yes.
to shop around. There are so many
Yeah.
people out there in this big blue marble. Why not take the time to interact with them? Don't dig yourself into that dirt and stay stuck fast. Spread your legs and walk because
Oh
you'll
my
get that foot
God.
massage.
Okay. Mike, what else do we need to get to?
Let's get to a couple besides my own personal relationships being outed.
Podcast relationships, yeah.
Apologies to @Shannon. I have a couple of things that I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
So Jeff so eloquently put, as the castaways were walking into the reward challenge,
Yeah.
and he's doing his odd little construction worker era period of like commenting on them, like, here's our final 6.
Look at you. If you knew how good you looked.
You'd be great if you smiled more. But he said, Survivor 44, what do we have in store? And now
Oh yeah.
I got to thinking about this because I think, unfortunately, one of the problems with the new era, understandably, is that things are starting to run together. I've been understandably hearing the complaint from some people that because there's no subtitles or names for the season, they're just numbered. We don't even remember what the logos might be or what animals might be involved.
Mhm.
Then we have a tough trouble distinguishing seasons. And so
Sure.
what I thought we might be able to do is come up with some mnemonics. Like Jeff did for Survivor 44, what do we have in store? Can we come up with rhyming phrases for Survivor seasons 41 through 44 as almost a pseudo subtitle so that if people are remembering which one's 42 again, they'll say, oh, it's linked with this phrase. Now I remember what the season is.
Okay. All right, Mike. That's a fun game. All right. Survivor 41.
So this is an easy one I came up with. Survivor 41 from lamb to lion.
That's not a real rhyme.
Oh, come on. It's
I
an
don't like
emphasis
it.
on the second syllable. Sondheim would approve. Rest in peace.
Survivor 41. You'll never guess who won. Can you rhyme 1 and 1?
I think that they're spelled differently. I think that really works.
Mhm.
How about Survivor?
Well, let's hold on. Let's not just yada yada. Let's see. What else rhymes with 1?
So here's one.
Dangerous. Time for dangerous fun.
Dangerous. How about Survivor 41? But is it fun? Could be a good one.
But is it fun?
How about Survivor 41? We've only just begun.
We've only just begun. But does that remind you, like that rhymes, but does it remind you of what happened in Survivor 41?
Oh, here's a good one. Survivor 41, come on in, guys, is done.
Yes, okay. Yes, okay. Now we're cooking with gas.
There we go. Let's turn it up. Season 42.
Season 42.
So I had season 42, eras not so new.
Not so new.
Because we just saw it happen in the previous season, right? That was the entire conceit of the season was, what if we repeated the same twist but different people?
Yeah, well, what if it's Survivor 42, Survivor 41 Part 2?
Oh, that's a really good one. So then we have 2 colons in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if they haven't seen it, it's new.
Oh, that's a good one as well. How about Survivor 42?
Or Survivor 42, Fake Blood. Ew.
Or Survivor 42, start the game with goo. Like that fake blood.
Yeah, fake blood. Sure.
Or here's actually a helpful reminder. So for Survivor 42, Jackson Fox withdrew. Just as a nice reminder of what happened in that premiere.
Yes. So yeah, this is good.
I think this is easy. I like Survivor 44, the redo from Josh in the chat could work as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is an easy one for me. Survivor 43, do not trust Jesse.
Do not trust Jesse. Sure. Survivor 43. Gabler, you cannot see.
Oh, I thought it was a
He's
statement.
blind.
Gabler, you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
like a Laura Ingalls Wilder thing. Yeah, I just someone I had a Survivor 43 stunner from jury.
Stunner from jury.
Surprise
sure.
from jury. Survivor 43, it's all just one big tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Survivor 43. Get that money, baby.
Yeah, that could be it as well.
Yeah. And then and then for Survivor 44, what's it good for? What did he say?
So he said, what do we have in store? I think we could come up with much better ones.
Yeah.
Advantages galore would be a good one.
Advantages galore is very good. Yeah.
We could also have Tika's win the war.
Tika's win the war.
We don't know, but like we're pretty sure.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
We have about Jam loves to snore.
Jam does like to snore. Yeah. A lot of bodily functions from Jam this season.
Yeah, my last one is Matt and Franny's score.
Oh, I like that.
No, we're not asking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, but what about Survivor 45?
Oh, now this is an interesting one because we don't exactly know yet.
Survivor 45.
45. That crab is alive.
The crab is alive. Right. Survivor 45. The idol is in a beehive.
I mean, if there's gonna be a big beehive at the center of this, like, can we just moved on from birdcage to now beehive? Now it's really dangerous. Reach your hand.
Now it is very dangerous, right? I mean, this fall on we got NFL football on CBS. It's like this Wednesday, check out the Survivor 90-minute premiere. And this season, we're doing a new first. The idol is in a beehive. Survivor 45. And then the immunity, the logo has to have a bee on it.
I think it just has to be all hexagonal little like sections of a beehive. Maybe that'll be tribal councils inside a giant hive. Maybe Jeff should then wear a bee costume.
He says the queen bee. What they don't know is that it's actually a fake idol in the beehive.
Yeah, exactly. And they won't know until they lick it and figure out if it's honey or not. Jeff says, burp in my mouth. Let me taste if it's honey.
It's honey. Yeah, bit of honey.
We could do Survivor 45. How about Take the Dive?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's very applicable.
Yes, it could be for people that might have taken a dive before.
Survivor 45, do you have do what it takes to survive? Survivor 45, be the one who drives. Like Survivor 45, I feel like actually is going to be a really easy
Lone Ranger says Survivor 45, the ultimate deep dive. We'll see about that.
Yeah. Survivor 46 is going to be interesting. Survivor 46 could be Bag of Tricks.
Mm-hmm. Careful, everybody. Family show. Okay. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that. What else do you have, Mike?
So I have one more thing that I would like to bring up as I would say our surprise witness in our court case that I think you and I are both behind as like the lawyers representing the case of Jam Arocho versus the other 17 contestants as to why he should win. I'd like to bring up something, and I will say right now that this admittedly might be something that will really play on the forefront of people's minds for future seasons. I'm talking about viewers, not players. So like, if you do not want that type of speculation in your mind at all, tune out for the next 5 minutes, because I have noticed something from the very first episode of every New Era season so far. Yes. And I think it might be a continuing trend and something we should be looking out for.
What do you got, Mike?
So in the first few minutes of the game, Jeff gathers everybody on the mats and pretends he does not know their names as he flags them down with their clothing, and they talk about usually how much they love Survivor. In those scenes, those mat chats, every single new era season, the winner from that season spoke during that mat chat.
Yes.
So Survivor 41, we had Eric Abraham talked, Erica talked, Nasir talked, Heather talked. Survivor 42, we had Mike Turner talk, Zach talked, Marianne talked. Survivor 43, I think we had Janine, we had Noel, we had James, and we had Gabler. Survivor 44, we had Matthew, we had Franny, we had Jam Jam. I think this is a hiding in plain sight editing choice from the people who make the show to say essentially, even if they don't go to tribal council in the first episode, you will get to hear from this person no matter what at the start of this journey that will lead them to $1 million eventually. I do not think it's coincidental. I would not be surprised if the trend continues in season 45. And I think it's going to keep perpetuating in this very season.
Yeah, I went back when I did the all Gabler edit. Yeah, Gabler did not have any sort of like on the boat out there, but then that Jeff did ask him. He talked about how he's been watching Survivor before his kids hatched.
Yeah.
yes. So all right, yeah, it's interesting to watch for, and certainly it's a trend until it isn't. But yeah, that's a good catch.
And I also, I had wondered as well. Okay, is Jeff just picking out a few people and we happen to see it all? So I did end up contacting the fantastic guest that you recently had on in Owen Knight, asking him, does Jeff talk to everybody during the opening match chat? And in Survivor 43, he said basically yes.
Yeah, I think that they do. I think that they stand there for like 10 minutes and they talk to everybody, and then they just cherry pick anything interesting.
Yeah, so I think that we have to pay attention to that of like, who is getting highlighted now? Who knows? Maybe the whole absolutely incredible Carolyn cold open gets counted towards that. But to your point, I'm not counting the like on the boat stuff. I'm talking Jeff specifically calling that person out in the mat before they get into the marooning challenge. We are 3 for 3 so far and might be 4 for 4 by the time Wednesday expires.
Okay. Mike, we've talked about how iconic the Tika 3 are. Surely they will be the first Tika players to return to Survivor. No doubt about that. Who will, of those three, who will play first again? And when will that be? Because I do think it would be a scenario where if the three of them, much like Lex and Big Tom and Ethan, if the three of them were to play in an all-star season, I do think that there would be a rather large target on each of them, like under any circumstance. But if the three of them were in a season together.
Yeah, I mean, to that point also about the big three in Africa, I'm assuming they would be on separate tribes as well, considering that they would probably continue the 3 tribes thing from the pre-merge and try to separate them out as much as possible to try to mitigate pre-existing relationships. So are we saying then we're assuming that all 3 of them would be asked back for this season? Or are you saying if life circumstances happened, who do you think would be the first asked back?
I think Carolyn.
I think Carolyn as well. I don't know. I think Carson would be the one that would be more likely to say yes because he has the time. I'm assuming considering he is just a student and would probably be graduating. Like, I think Carolyn would probably have a tougher time taking time off to go again.
Well, I thought that Carson would have the hardest time to like make the time for it because he's on like a trajectory with his career.
Because he's on a rocket ship at that point.
He's on a rocket ship. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It depends, right? I mean, that's the reason why Big Brother gets the clientele that they do is because the younger people are more likely to commit to 90-plus day seasons because they have less material obligations and a 9 to 5 to hold down. That being said, I think if you were asking, like, no matter what, who would be asked back first? Carolyn, 100%. Yeah. She is not only one of the stars of the season, but I would say outside of Marianne, I think like one of the most popular people that has been on the show in, I'm going to say the past 10 years.
I mean, with all due respect to Marianne, I think that Carolyn is I think potentially like a Mount Rushmore figure.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I'd be so intrigued moving forward to see how
Let's
that
do it. Mount Rushmore Survivor characters.
Oh, Survivor characters. This is fun. So we're going to be counting just no players, just like characters we absolutely love.
Yeah, we're not talking about like the greatest players. These are just like the characters that Survivor has found. I think I could do it pretty easily.
No, I just wish there were more founding fathers besides our main trio. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is Coach.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem, is that you think you have 4 and then more end up coming up.
All right, let's narrow it down. Let's whittle it down.
Okay, let you throw some names out here.
Okay, Rupert.
Rupert, I think, is a good one. Rudy.
Rudy, I have on my list. I wrote down 3 names: Rudy, Rupert, Carolyn, Coach.
Trying to think if they're like, and it's tough because like, does Coach represent the like Philip, Debbie, Nora type of characters?
If he doesn't, he is the best of those.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of people who have played multiple seasons.
Yeah, that's tough, right? Because like, I would love to throw Shane Powers up there, but the fact that he only played 1 time is like definitely a demerit on his credit.
Yeah.
Thanks, voting audience in 2015.
Yeah, I know Carolyn just has the 1 appearance.
I mean,
so far, but she might play more times than anybody.
This might be a bit of a posthumous bump, but like, I think Keith Nail would make the short list.
Certainly would be in consideration.
I think so. I mean, obviously not as electric, I think, as those others, but I think, listen, there's a reason why he stood out as such a character amongst like that very game-heavy era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, is Tyson a part of that? Or does the fact that like he's actually good, he's like so good at the game, does that obfuscate the character aspect?
I mean, it feels weird to have Tyson and Coach potentially on this.
What about Sandra? Same thing.
I don't know. I feel like it's that if we were doing like best player, that I feel like that she's on a different like she's literally, her head is on a different Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. What about like, I know again he's a one-time player, but he hasn't been given the opportunity to. I put Christian up there.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think he was one of those people who obviously didn't make it as far as Carolyn, but I think was like a runaway star from that season.
Mm-hmm.
Angelina would be another great one on there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Rob, get the jackhammer out. We need to make more room on Mount Rushmore.
Make more room. Okay.
Yeah. There.
I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on this, assuming people get 3 hours into a 3-hour podcast 2 days before the finale.
Honestly, I love this debate more than I ever do debating like strategic players, seasons, etc. I'm all about the characters and the comedic potential, and like this is what keeps me going back. Tony, I think is also a big one.
Tony's
but again,
another good one.
And I think we go back to like
I don't think it's disqualifying if they're like I feel like, to me, I define like a character of like sort of like are they like, could I imagine them as like on a sitcom or in a cartoon where I would like
Cochran infamously wrote a sitcom for Tony, so I think that qualifies him very much so.
Yeah, I mean, Cochran is potentially somebody who would be in that conversation.
Oh, Johnny Fairplay.
Fairplay, sure, yeah, another good one. Okay, all right. Well, let's leave it there for that. Mike, anything else you want to say before we get to the finale?
I am just so happy to have the opportunity to first off talk with you, and huge commendations to you. I mean, like we've said, it's been a very up and down season with no offense to the cast whatsoever, who I think, again, very much lived up to our expectations of being like absolutely lovely, throw everything at the wall type of characters that have made so much entertaining television for the past 13 weeks. But I think we have ebbed and flowed a bit between, looking at the game and being like, is this the type of direction that the show wants to go into? I think really being won back over by what people can do when they're put on an island with their own whims and a few advantages in their pocket and making magic happen. And I truly feel like magic has happened over the past few weeks. And I think your ability to, much like the Survivor 41 logo, be able to weather the storm, to bring in all these fantastic guests, alumni and podcaster alike over these weeks and try to be like fair, but I think appropriate to your thoughts about the season throughout, I think has been awesome. And it's been really fun to get to talk to this. And we've been rewarded, I think, with the past month of really great Survivor.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that very much. I have enjoyed this season, and I hope that everybody who's listening, for the most part, has. And there certainly were things that we did not like, but I feel like that we tried to, say the things that we didn't like, but also try to find the things that we do still love about Survivor all along the way. And of course, it was a joy to get to listen to you on the B&B all season long. So be sure to check out Mike this week also, if you want even more Survivor content. Although I have to say, Mike, so you and Liana talked to Jenny and Phil this week. And I have to say that I had to tell Jenny and Phil, hey, thanks a lot, guys, because you were having your discussion about Carolyn and the burp. And there was some discussion of what exactly is a burp? Is the burp the preview? And I was cleaning my garage, and then Nicole happened to walk outside when Phil T said, "Is a fart a baby poop?" And he did not use those words. And my wife said, "What are you listening to? What are you listening to?" I'm like, it's nothing. Nothing. She's like, what is it? What is it? What are you listening to? I was like, it's just the Survivor B&B. She's like, that's one of your podcasts? That's a podcast from RHAP? I was like, yeah. It's just like, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Oh my God.
Like, thanks, guys.
Oh my God. I'm crying.
Great timing.
I'm so glad that we got you at the exact
earbuds. Everybody, get it. Everybody should have earbuds.
We are an NSFW, not safe for wife podcast.
Not safe for wife. Yeah, Nicole doesn't like that kind of humor.
But that was ridiculously fun. We went on for a long time about the burp, and we talked some Survivor 44 as well. But Liana had arranged an incredible claim to fame game, perhaps a warm up for what is shaping up to be the reality hit of the summer, because it's the only reality show of the summer.
Mike, are you forgetting about Stars on Mars?
I guess I was.
Carson, we need a guest. Yeah.
I 3D printed Lance Armstrong so I can figure out how to interact with him in real life. So that was a lot of fun. We also got into this odd tangent where I talked about how if I was voted out of Survivor, I'd want to turn into a dog to see how Jeff would react, because this poor man has been susceptible to so many antics from these Survivor contestants in the past couple of weeks. So that was great. And we're going to have Ali Lasher on for the finale.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, this coming weekend to break down everything that's going to happen over the 3 hours happening on Wednesday night. But overall, this was a really great time. I think I'm left in a really hopeful
Speaking
spot.
of 3 hours of fun.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope people enjoyed it. I know it was meandering and rambling, but look, we worship Carolyn, who is like the quintessential example of that. So I just, I genuflect to her. She is my muse, my goddess at this point. I will rub her feet. But I think, to me, I feel hopeful about the direction the series is going. Maybe perhaps this is, cockeyed optimism, but this idea of looking at where the jury phase has gone, how clean it has been, and watching just some really fantastically solid Survivor. Again, comical, solid Survivor happening. Getting to see an entire segment last week of just people plotting around one another without anything that they need to worry about or anything that's glaring on the screen or having to hunt after something. This is why I fell in love with the show 2 decades ago and continue to do so time after time. And I will say I love you back when the show tells me that I love it.
Not just thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. So
thanks, Mike.
Yeah, so it's been such a great opportunity to get to talk about the season, to talk especially with this cast who has just been a really fun group overall. And I look forward to it closing. It's sad because, again, given especially some recent reality TV news, with a couple of exceptions from ABC and Fox, we're saying goodbye to CBS reality for a good long while, about a couple months before we get a tsunami out of it. So I'm trying to conserve as much potable water as I can to try to take as few sips as I can before we then drown in it, lovingly so, in the fall.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be okay. We get to recharge the battery a little bit. These seasons go very intense, and then basically we'll have June and July to get ready to go, and who knows what other
go to the beach, hang out with my crab daddy.
Yeah, we'll have lots of fun. Hopefully we'll have interviews and lots of things that we'll create for to do here on the podcast, and then get ready for a just insane stretch run in the second half of the year.
Yeah, which is exciting. Like, it's a labor of love, but is what we should focus on. I'm so monumentally lucky that I get to do what I get to do. And maybe this is where the music comes in. I say, this is my emotional farewell speech. But like, I'm so happy that I get to do this and getting to listen to you, Rob, and get to talk with you here for 3 hours about sometimes seriousness, but most of the time absolute silliness is.
Oh, we can do both. Yeah,
it's an honor and a Jervis, and I'm so happy that I get to be here and we get to talk more. Who knows, Rob? Like a few months from now, we'll be doing it all again, talking about the crabs and birds of season 45.
Yep, the birds and the crabs.
Oh boy, well, is that what Jeff's gonna ask Matt and Franny about?
All right.
Oh, the birds and the bees. There we go. The idols of the beehive.
Yep. Okay. Mike, what else do you have coming up these days? Very busy on post-show recaps.
Busy as a bee, a fake bee, perhaps. Yeah, so from a Survivor perspective, I will also mention what you so courteously plugged up top, my exit press.
Yes.
So got to talk with Jamie, which was a delight. Again, I said this on Twitter, but she is one of my favorite new era characters. Was so great to have her talk about everything that we saw, what we didn't see, and especially her response to her own edit. That's up at parade.com. And then this week, obviously, we are talking with the final five. So due to the final three immediately getting interviewed on Fire by Jeff Probst, hopefully not a forecaster for how the season ends, community style, we are all doing our interviews the next day. I know in the past, I think Dalton and I did our interviews the night of Wednesday night. We're all doing that Thursday morning instead. Okay. I'm really excited to talk with this final five. So you have to stay
up till 3 o'clock in the morning.
I mean, I probably still will because I'll just be buzzing from excitement. I'll be like Cody after that one reward that got him sent home on 43. Hey, 43, don't drink the coffee. There we go. Now we remember it. But I'll be doing interviews with the final five, which I'm really excited for, especially, if my prognostication of like a Heidi flame through the stretch ends up, leading to a close victory, I'd be really keen to hear from her, as well as these fantastic characters that have absolutely lit up this incandescent season. And then over on post-show recaps, I'm doing a butt ton of stuff. Josh Wigler and I have ramped down on Mrs. Davis. And if you like the tone that Rob and I are going for on this podcast, suffice it to say, you'll love Mrs. Davis. It is this cracked out show from Damon Lindelof and Tara Hernandez that is now complete. It's all on Peacock, home of Critics' Choice Real TV Award nominated series, The Traitors. And it is one of the wildest shows that I've ever seen in my life. I'll leave it at that. It has some of the most boffo twists in television history. I had so much fun getting to cover it. I'm also covering...
Yeah, can I say that I have not watched a second of that, but I listened to you all interviewing one of the actors from the show. I was like, what? I'm not following. I'm not following.
You were the Nicole that came in saying, like, you talk about this on this network?
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? Who is this? What did they play?
Yeah, it's one of these things where, like, if an old school fan walks in on a new school Survivor player talking about all these advantages and they have no idea, like, they're an unfrozen caveman, that's essentially what you were experiencing, Rob. Yeah. So get some context. Watch Mrs. Davis.
You just said something that can't be right, what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm also covering Silo, which is a really nice dystopian post-apocalyptic mystery box show that I'm covering with Dr. Amanda Rabinowitz. And then Josh Wigler and I are gearing up, much like Carson and William Shatner and crew, to take to the stars. We're doing a rewatch / first watch for me of Battlestar Galactica starting this summer, which is really exciting. Turned out to be fortuitous timing because not a lot of new scripted stuff is coming out anytime soon. So that's one of our big projects that we're embarking on, doing as the train of Down the Hatch continues to chug along the tracks.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, so much fun to get together tonight.
And also, sorry, Barry's finishing up. I forgot about that because it's this coming weekend. It'll also be covering the Succession series finale as well. So we'll see if, unlike in Survivor, if Jamie, aka Connor Roy, will end up getting some sort of piece of the pie at the end of it.
All right. Well, Mike, this was great fun to get together tonight. We will have, of course, our coverage on Wednesday night. Marianne will be filling in for Stephen Fishback on the Survivor Know-It-Alls on Wednesday night. I'll be live at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time. then I will have exit interviews with the final 5 from this season. And then we'll have plenty more coverage coming your way. Make sure you subscribe. robswebsite.com/subscribe. Thank you all so much for joining us for this marathon pod with Mike tonight. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.